When night falls and the final movements of the day slowly fade into stillness, our minds often become their loudest. Unfinished thoughts, unanswered questions, and drifting emotions hover within us like a thin veil of mist settling across the inner landscape. In the modern rhythm of life, where everything rushes forward and the mind is stretched between worry and expectation, we sometimes forget how deeply tired we truly are. But tonight, you no longer need to resist that quiet chaos. Let me guide you into a slower, softer journey, a place where the deepest mysteries of psychology are told in a gentle cadence, like a whisper moving through the dark. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And in the next 3 hours, we will shine a tender light upon those hidden depths. So loosen your shoulders, release every lingering worry, and allow your mind to open little by little, as though stepping into the mysterious chambers of your own inner world. As you gently close your eyes, letting each breath soften and lengthen, you begin to sense something strangely delicate about your own experience of existence. Something that science, even as it stretches toward the edges of the universe and bends space through its most complex equations, still cannot truly reach. It is the most primal, most mysterious, and perhaps the most tender question in the human mind. Where does consciousness come from? How do lifeless particles, cold atoms, in different vibrations gather themselves into a me that is listening, sensing, trembling? What in this fragile mass of neural tissue allows us not only to exist, but to know that we exist? This is one of the deepest paradoxes in philosophy and psychology. David Chalmers calls it the hard problem of consciousness. The difficulty does not lie in explaining how the brain works. Electrical signals, reflexes, biological mechanisms. The difficulty lies in this. Why do these physical processes produce subjective experience? Why is it not just mechanical reaction, but the redness of a sunset, the aftertaste of a memory, the human ache of something lost? When you place your hand over your chest, you feel the heartbeat as yours. When you gaze into the dark, you know you are thinking. But where does that knowing arise? If we were to dismantle the brain, synapse by synapse, connection by connection, nowhere would we find a little self sitting inside. Nietzsche once wrote in Beyond Good and Evil, "There is no being behind the doing, acting, becoming. The doer is merely a fiction added to the deed." Perhaps the I is nothing more than a thin mist layered over physical activity, a beautiful fiction the brain creates so the world feels anchored. Yet fiction or not, consciousness remains the most enigmatic terrain humanity has ever tried to enter. Imagine the universe before life arose. Only stone, metal, dust, gases, quarks twisting silently in the void. No sensation, no pain, joy, memory, awareness. And then, somehow, from those ancient atoms, life emerged, then brains emerged, then consciousness appeared, as if matter suddenly became capable of gazing back at itself. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." But what in us possesses the ability to look inside? What did the indifferent universe do to create this soft inner light of self-knowing? The strange truth is that science has only brushed the surface of the riddle. We understand how neurons fire. We know dopamine brings reward, serotonin brings stability, the amygdala shapes fear. We can record brain waves, simulate neural networks with supercomputers, even alter emotion by stimulating tiny regions of the cortex. Yet no matter what we do, we cannot explain why a 0.07-volt impulse in the cortex becomes sorrow. why a synaptic reflex becomes a childhood memory, why the color red is red in our private experience. In its deepest nature, consciousness is like a door that opens only from the inside. From the outside, we see the physical structure, but when the door closes, inside lies a world of emotion, subjectivity, silence, and mystery that no measurement can touch. Thomas Nagel called this what it is like to be, something no equation can describe. No one knows what it feels like to be a bat, even if we dissect its brain to the last molecule. That shows us that consciousness belongs to the world of experience, not to the world of matter. And here, in this very place, you, the listener, are stepping into one of the most beautiful mysteries of existence. Let yourself soften. Feel your breath grow slower, deeper. Perhaps the answer to this mystery does not lie in knowledge, but in the subtle awareness blooming in you right now. Let me take you further. Have you ever wondered why you can observe your own thoughts? Why you not only think, but know that you are thinking? Many philosophers consider this the most extraordinary fragment of consciousness, the appearance of an inner observer. You think, and you observe yourself thinking. You feel, and you notice yourself feeling. As though the mind has two layers, one that operates and one that quietly watches. Eckhart Tolle calls this presence the watcher. In silent nighttime moments like this, that watching layer becomes most apparent. It is not hurried, not swept up in the noise of the day. It simply observes with gentle clarity. And this awareness, this delicate inner witnessing, is the root of the entire mystery of consciousness. Freud described the mind as an iceberg, most of it submerged. Consciousness is the small part above water, while the unconscious, vast, hidden, shapes behavior, emotion, memory. But the real question is, why does the tiny piece above the surface know that it is above the surface? The mystery does not lie in the size of the unconscious, but in the fact that consciousness, small yet luminous, can see itself. And as you lie here in this moment, you may begin to realize that consciousness was never meant to solve survival problems. A spider does not need to ask, "Who am I?" to weave its web. A tiger does not need philosophy to hunt. A cell does not need self-awareness to divide. So why were humans given this strange gift? Is consciousness a byproduct, a side effect, or the ultimate aim of evolution? No one knows. But within that unknowability, humanity finds itself. Consciousness is both light and shadow, both the question and the one who asks it. And the more we speak of it, the more it slips like night fog, dissolving when grasped, yet always present, always brushing against us with quiet depth. You are surrendering to that current now. You are stepping into the inner space where everything becomes softer, slower, steadier. And in this state, you may begin to sense something important. The simple fact that you are listening, sensing, recognizing your own existence is already the miracle of consciousness. No ultimate answer required, no perfect explanation needed. The very presence of this experience, this stillness, this awareness, this unfolding within you, is proof of the beautiful mystery itself. And as your mind sinks deeper into this calm, you may see that the question of consciousness is not a problem to solve, but a doorway to open. A doorway leading into the next part of the journey. And now, as you hover gently at the threshold between waking and sleep, between awareness and dream, we can move softly into another profound mystery. The explanatory gap where science reaches its limit and the mind reaches the edge of its own understanding. Let your breath slow just a little more, and together we will step forward, gently, deeply, into the next chamber of this journey. And as we gently close the first question about the nature of consciousness, where we have only brushed the surface of what unfolds within the mind, you may begin to feel a faint current drifting between two realms of awareness. The realm science can observe, and the realm only experience can touch. It is at that fragile boundary where you recognize that you know you exist but cannot explain why you know it, that another mystery opens, deeper, quieter, and more shadowed. This is what philosophers call the explanatory gap, the unbridgeable distance between the physical workings of the brain and the subjective world of feeling. A gap so strange that if you gaze into it long enough, it begins to feel like stepping into a space without ground or pillars, a gentle suspension in the pure fact of being. Let your mind drift slowly into that rhythm. You know your brain is a physical organ, a structure made of soft tissue, neurons, and electrochemical patterns. You know that when you look at a flower, light enters the retina, becomes electrical impulses, and is processed by the brain. You know that when you touch water, when you hear the wind, when you feel sadness or joy, every sensation is tied to tiny mechanical events happening in the nervous system. But no matter how many models, formulas, or mechanisms we create, none of them truly answer the most important question. Why do these electrical signals become feeling? Why does neural activity produce subjectivity or that ineffable, what it is like, quality of experience? This is what Thomas Nagel calls the subjective character of experience. In his famous essay, What Is It Like to Be a Bat?, he asks, "We can analyze a bat's brain down to the smallest detail, but we will never truly know what it feels like to be a bat." This reveals the core issue. Science can describe structure, but not experience. David Chalmers once wrote in The Conscious Mind, "We have good reason to believe that the brain is responsible for consciousness, but we have no idea why. It is that single why that forms a vast chasm between what we can explain and what we can only feel." Imagine looking at a painting of a sunset. On the retina, there is only light. In the brain, only signals. But in the mind, there is beauty, wordless, warm, spreading quietly across the chest, slowing the breath. The distance between physical activity and inner experience is the explanatory gap. To see this more clearly, let me take you one layer deeper. When a piece of music sends shivers down your spine, science can tell you that dopamine is released, that the nucleus accumbens and auditory cortex light up. But none of that data tells you the one truth that matters, why that melody brings you to tears. Science can describe the process, but it cannot describe the feeling. And that is why the explanatory gap remains one of the mind's deepest enigmas. Nietzsche once said in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, "There are depths that cannot be measured by reason." Perhaps consciousness is one of those depths, unmeasurable, only experienceable. At night, when the sounds outside fade into a gentle hush, you may hear the quiet beating of your own heart. One beat, then another. And if you listen closely, you'll sense that no biological explanation truly touches the feeling of that beat. For the heartbeat is not just the contraction of muscle, it is the subjective pulse of being, the intimate sense of being alive. The explanatory gap is the distance between the heartbeat and the feeling of a heartbeat, between light and color, between sound and melody, between electrical change and sorrow. You may imagine the brain as an intricate machine. But the strangest part is this: the machine can look back at itself. When you ask, "Why do I feel this way?" the brain is questioning the brain. And in that moment, the explanatory gap deepens. Because not only does the outer world possess subjectivity, You're experiencing the subjectivity of your own experience, a subtle recursive loop with no clear bottom. Let me offer you a gentle metaphor. Imagine standing at the edge of a still lake. The surface is consciousness. The swirling water beneath is the brain, chaotic, restless, full of collisions. Yet the surface, delicate, quiet, never reveals the full turbulence below. And the strangest thing is this: the surface is where you live, where you feel beauty, sadness, memory. The brain's physical activity is the lake bed, but your experience is the surface. And between these layers, the bottom and the surface, no true bridge exists. That is the explanatory gap. When you think of someone you love, science may say the ventral tegmental area brightens, oxytocin rises, the autonomic nervous system shifts. But no one looking at a brain scan can tell how deeply you love them, whom you long for, or why that memory makes you smile in the night. The explanatory gap is what allows science to be right, yet never enough. William James once wrote in The Principles of Psychology, "Consciousness is an unbroken stream, but no analysis of the brain will ever reveal the stream itself. That continuous flow, the lived texture of your awareness, is the realm science cannot reach." Think also of dreaming. In dreams, you walk down roads that never existed, meet people who no longer live, feel emotions that defy logic yet feel utterly real. These worlds are crafted by the brain, but the feeling of their reality, that escapes explanation. Electrical patterns become entire lifetimes, yet the meaning of the dream, its emotional truth, cannot be decoded through mere signals. This, too, is the explanatory gap. Tonight, as you sink gently into this state of rest, this mystery may no longer feel frightening. It is not something meant to unsettle us, but something that makes us wondrous. If all feelings were merely mechanical reactions, the world would be cold as metal. But the explanatory gap opens a space for beauty, meaning, and the entire depth of human experience. It is the space where art is born, where poetry takes shape, where love finds its language, where sorrow is given form, where memory becomes sky. And perhaps it is this very gap that makes life worth living. For if everything could be fully explained, if feeling were only a formula, if red were just a wavelength, if sadness were only a drop in serotonin, then the world would lose its mysteries. The mysteries that make us tremble with emotion. Consciousness is beautiful because it cannot be explained. And the explanatory gap is beautiful because it can never be filled. As you relax your body and let your breath fall deeper and softer, you may feel yourself drifting through this very space, the space between body and mind, between matter and emotion. You do not need to understand it. You only need to feel it. And in that quiet feeling, you take one more step into the journey of exploring the human mind. A journey where each part reveals a deeper layer of the question. And now, with your mind softened, settled, quiet, it is time we move into another mystery, the illusion of reality, where we discover that not only is consciousness difficult to explain, but the world you see each day is not as real as it appears. Let your breath lengthen, and together we will enter part 3, softly, slowly, like night mist. And as we drift away from that hazy distance between the brain's machinery and the private glow of subjective experience, where every question seems to dissolve into the soft, velvety darkness of consciousness itself, you may feel your mind beginning to open in an entirely new way. As though, after gazing into what cannot be explained, you suddenly begin to suspect that the very thing you've always believed to be reality may not be as solid as you once thought. For if the world inside cannot be fully captured by science, then what of the world outside, the one you see, touch, hear? Is it truly what it seems? Or is it a painting created by a mind both astonishingly skilled and profoundly limited, filling gaps, bending angles, whispering gently to you? This is the real world. It is at this juncture, where your thoughts still drift softly from part 2 and your breath is settling into the slow rhythm of night, that I invite you to step into one of the most beautiful and bewildering mysteries, the illusion of reality. Imagine looking at the scene before you, perhaps the room where you now rest, a small warm light brushing the wall, or a gentle darkness wrapping itself around quiet corners. And yet, no matter what you see, there is a mesmerizing truth most of us never realize. You do not see the world as it is. You see the world your brain creates. Every second, your brain receives more than 11 million bits of sensory information, yet only about 40 bits enter consciousness. The rest, more than 99.9999% is filtered, blurred, dismissed, or replaced entirely by the brain's best guesses, which means that even when you believe you're seeing the whole picture, you're only perceiving a small, curated, deeply subjective slice of reality. Recall what we explored in the explanatory gap. Science can describe neurons, but not experience. Now we go one step further. Science can describe how the eyes capture light, but not guarantee that what you see is the truth. The brain is not a camera. It is a painter racing to recreate the world quickly enough to keep you alive. If the image is too complex, the brain simplifies it. If a patch of vision is missing, like the natural blind spot of the retina, the brain fills it in. And so you see a smooth wall, even though part of it was never seen. You believe your peripheral vision is clear, when in truth it is a blurred, indistinct haze. You assume color as a property of the world, when in reality it is merely the brain's interpretation of light frequencies. This brings to mind Immanuel Kant's words in Critique of Pure Reason. We do not see things as they are. We see them as we are. And nothing could be more fitting for this night's journey. Let me guide you through a simple example. When you stretch your hand toward the edge of your vision and do not look directly at it, you believe you still see your hand. But look closely. The image there is faint, vague, barely formed. Why then do you not notice this in daily life? Because your brain does not want you to see the world as it truly is. It wants you to see an optimized world, one that is less chaotic, less overwhelming, easier to navigate. And so it redraws, predicts, fills the gaps. The world you see is never raw data. It is always your brain's artwork. And perhaps because of these limits, Michel de Montaigne's words and essays become more true than ever. Nothing is so firmly believed as what we least know. We trust most deeply the very world we understand the least, the world already edited by the brain before we ever become aware of it. Think for a moment about color. The red you see is not out there. It is your brain's rendering of long wavelength light. Another species might see an entirely different color, or none at all. The purple you know is not the purple of a bee. The blue you perceive is not the blue of a bird. So which color is real? Or is no color real? Sound is the same. Vibrations in the air become rain, wind, or the soft sound of someone whispering your name. Yet a cat, a whale, or a butterfly would hear these vibrations in completely different ways. So where is the true sound? The world does not offer truth. The brain offers usefulness, a meaningful illusion. Let me share something even more surprising. The visual blind spot. Everyone has a hole in their vision where the optic nerve meets the eye, a place with zero photoreceptors, a literal absence of sight. Yet you never see a black dot floating in your view. The brain fills it in. It paints in the missing wall, sky, or floor, and does so effortlessly, silently, forever. And so you believe you see completeness. Imagine now looking out a window and seeing a bird. You think you see the entire bird at once. But your eye can only focus sharply on a tiny point, the fovea. Everything outside that point is blurred or lacks detail entirely. But the brain paints clarity across the whole image, giving you the illusion of perfect vision. If your mind softens enough, you may begin to feel something remarkable. The world you see is not the outside world. It is the world inside your brain. You see the model the brain constructs. Just as Plato described in the allegories of the cave, humans do not see the essence of things. We see shadows of truth, then mistake them for truth. Perception is not a mirror. It is a brush. Try a simple experiment right now. Close your eyes for a few seconds. Then open them. You believe the image appears instantly. But the brain takes 150 milliseconds to process, edit, and assemble what you see, which means you always perceive the world slightly in the past. You do not see the world as it is. You see the world as your brain reconstructs it. Take a slow breath. Notice that even the light, sound, color, and shapes around you, here in this moment, are useful illusions. Not wrong, not bad, but not absolute truth. And in this quiet awareness, you may sense a strange comfort. The illusion is not a flaw. It is what makes the world livable. The brain does not deceive you out of malice. It protects you with simplicity. And in learning this, something softens. The anger, the fear, the rigid expectations. Understanding that the world is not as fixed as it seems allows you to release what once felt immovable. Arthur Schopenhauer wrote in The World as will and representation. The world is my representation. And he was right. The world you inhabit is not the world outside. It is the world you experience, shaped by light, sound, memory, emotion, longing, fear, and hope, all blending together into the delicate illusion you call reality. As you listen in the quiet of this night, notice how everything around you begins to slow, as though the veil of reality is thinned and you glimpse behind it. Not the ultimate truth, but the truth that you are the one weaving this world through perception. And as you rest in that gentle knowing, you may feel your mind settling, soft as water. For once, you understand that the world is not entirely as you see it. You become less rigid, less afraid, less burdened by certainty. You begin to loosen your grip on what you once believed had to be true, because even your senses whisper illusions. And it is here, at the meeting point between what is real and what is not, between reality and illusion, that you begin to flow into the next part of the journey, a place where the mind not only paints the world, but continually paints itself. Allow me to guide you into part 4, the fragmented mind, where we explore how the brain not only distorts reality, but constantly reshapes memory, emotion, and the very person you believe yourself to be. Take a slow breath, deep, soft, and let yourself drift gently into the mysteries ahead. And as we step through the doorway called the illusion of reality, where you've seen that the world before you is not a mirror of truth, but a painting your brain recreates for survival, another realization begins to unfold. If reality itself is filtered, adjusted, guessed, and edited by the machinery of perception, then what happens to the worlds inside your mind? What moves within the inner landscape that no one else can see, No one can record, no one can verify, except you. And what if the mind, like the world outside, is not seamless at all, but a fractured space, layered and stitched together from countless shards of memory, thought, and drifting emotion? It is here, in this tender afterglow of the illusion your brain creates, that we drift gently into a deeper mystery: the fragmented mind. Pause for a moment and sense yourself. You are listening to these words, yet a part of you is floating elsewhere, tracing soft edges of a thought. Another part watches your breath rising and falling. Another remains quiet, unmoving. Another is remembering something from earlier today. You do not have one mind, you have many small minds, parallel, overlapping, sometimes disconnected. William James wrote in The Principles of Psychology, "Consciousness does not appear to itself chopped up in bits. Such words as chain or train or stream do not describe it fitly as it presents itself in the first instance." Yet he also recognized that this sense of seamlessness is only how the surface feels. Beneath it, the mind works in tiny, scattered fragments, like streams feeding a river. The mind is not a single narrative. It is a mosaic, pieces falling away, pieces returned, pieces remembered imperfectly, pieces erased, pieces rewritten, thoughts broken mid-sentence, emotions buried, desires half-formed, fears tucked into shadow. Freud imagined the mind as a house of many floors, the upper bright, the middle tangled, the bottom vast and dim. But the beautiful and painful truth is that these floors never fully separate. They leak into each other, flow into each other, making you a person who is never exactly the same from one moment to the next. When you recall a memory, perhaps a rainy childhood afternoon, you believe you are replaying a scene preserved intact. But the truth is gentler and stranger. Memory is not a file. Memory is an act of reconstruction. Every time you remember, you are remembering the version your mind rebuilt, not the original. Elizabeth Loftus, a pioneer in memory research, showed that a simple suggestion can make the brain fabricate details that never existed. How then can anyone be certain that their memories are true? Have you ever read a paragraph only to realize you absorbed none of it? Walked into a room and forgotten why? Felt a sudden sense of déjà vu with no clear source? These small ruptures are signs of the fragmented mind, different mental streams drifting out of sync. Your attention reading, your thoughts wandering, your awareness drifting. Suddenly, you are not entirely steering yourself, and this is not failure. It is simply how the human mind works. Let me give you another image. Imagine the mind as a vast room with hundreds of tiny doors. Behind each door is something different. A childhood memory, a worry from today, a half-finished dream, a story without an ending, a hope you've never spoken aloud. In the present moment, only a few doors are open, but the others never disappear. They wait. And at night, or in tired hours, forgotten doors open softly. Fragments spill into awareness without order or logic, like scattered petals on a quiet floor. The mind is not only fragmented, it is constantly editing. Have you noticed how, when you tell a story, you instinctively tell it in a way that protects yourself? How, in an argument, your mind reshapes the memory so you seem more right? How, when reliving a mistake, your mind highlights the most painful pieces? That is because the mind does not store events faithfully. It stores the emotion of the event. Then, when retelling, it rewrites the details to match the narrative your ego wants to maintain. The narrative of me. Nietzsche captured this perfectly in Beyond Good and Evil. Memory says, I did that. Pride replies, I could not have done that. Eventually, memory yields. The mind is not an archivist. It is an author, revising, omitting, embellishing, not to deceive you, but to protect you. Think of the moments when something feels right, though you cannot explain why. This is not mystical intuition. It is fragmentation. Some small shard of memory, an old lesson, a forgotten feeling rises from the depths and surfaces just in time, but without its context. You hear the conclusion, not the origin, so you believe it is a voice within. In truth, it is simply a piece of mind illuminated for a moment. You can see this fragmentation more clearly when you are tired. Under stress, the mind stitches loose threads into whole stories. A small sound becomes a threat. A gentle comment becomes criticism. A small setback becomes a proof of inadequacy. Not because the mind is weak, but because it is overwhelmed, its fragments colliding, blurring, amplifying. Yet within this fragmentation, the most beautiful things emerge. When a piece of music brings you to tears for reasons you cannot name, that is a forgotten memory brushing against a present emotion. When you love someone without logical explanation, that is needs, wounds, and longing fragments weaving themselves into a feeling too complex for words. When in the quiet of night, you remember something small and distant, that is an old door opening, releasing a soft echo you thought you had lost. The fragmented mind is part of what makes us human. If we had only one thought, one emotion, one memory at a time, we would be machines. It is the gentle disorder, the layered incompleteness, the emotional stitching that make us tender and deep. Carl Jung called the hidden parts of the mind the shadow. In Ion, he wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." And tonight, in the quiet where your breath falls softly, you may feel that shadow shifting, not threatening, not frightening, only present. It does not ask to be solved. It asks only to be acknowledged. Another fragment of you, waiting to be seen. As you breathe slower, deeper, you may notice that fragmentation is not your flaw. It is your fullness. Each fragment is part of your story. Each fragment is a thread in your inner tapestry. You do not need to force them into a single picture. You only need to know that all of them belong to you. And in this moment, as you come closer to the truth of your fragmented nature, your body may feel lighter, your mind softer, as though the loose pieces are settling gently into a calm pool of night. And when you are ready, we will continue into part 5. The Ship of Theseus, where we ask, if the mind is fragmented, if the self is always changing, what makes you still you? Let your breath slow just one more beat, and together we'll step softly, quietly, into the next mystery of the night. And as the reflections on the fragmented mind in part 4 continue to tremble softly within you, like drifting pieces of memory that never truly disappear, we gently enter another question, deeper, older, and tender in its own quiet way. If the mind is not seamless, as we once believed, if memory is always reconstructed, if emotion is forever shifting, then a question as natural as breathing begins to unfold. What, in the end, makes me myself, and why do we cling to a sense of stable identity when every part of us, our thoughts, our memories, our bodies, is constantly changing? It is at this point of convergence, like a river that keeps flowing yet carries the same name, that we discover one of the most beautiful paradoxes ever imagined in philosophy, the Ship of Theseus. Imagine the legendary vessel, the one Theseus supposedly sailed home on after defeating the Minotaur, described as being preserved by the Greeks, repaired plank by plank, mast by mast. Each decayed piece replaced with a new one, until eventually every part of the ship had been changed. And then ask yourself, is it still Theseus's ship? And if not, when exactly did it stop being the original? And if it is, then where does Theseus reside when none of the original material remains? Thomas Hobbes deepened this paradox by suggesting that someone might gather every discarded plank and rebuild a ship from the original pieces. So which then is the real ship? The one rebuilt from old material, or the one that continued the journey? These questions unsettle every notion of essence we've ever held. And as you lie here tonight, letting your breath slow and warm, you may realize the paradox is not about ships at all. It is about you. For your body functions the same way. Millions of cells die and renew each day, and within 7 to 10 years, almost every cell is new. So the body you inhabit today is not the one you had years ago. Yet you still say, "This is me," raising the question of what remains. Is it memory, though memory is unstable and ever-shifting? Is it personality, though personality evolves with time and experience? Is it consciousness, though consciousness is fluid and never still? And if the mind is fragmented, memory rewritten, personality transformed, and the body impermanent, then where exactly does the self reside? Heraclitus captured this truth in fragments when he wrote, "No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river and he's not the same man." A line that feels simple on the surface but touches the deepest nature of who you are. You are never the same person you were yesterday, nor will you be the same tomorrow. Yet you still feel a thread of continuity, a flowing story that connects the changing versions of yourself. Perhaps identity does not lie in matter or in memory, but in narrative. A story the mind tells to weave scattered fragments into a single stream. Derek Parfit once wrote in Reasons and Persons, "Identity is not what matters," meaning that what matters is not a fixed self, but the continuity of mental states. Just as a melody remains itself, not because each note is identical, but because the sequence of experience creates coherence. In your quietest moments, such as now, the question, "Who am I?" does not yield a clear answer. For when you close your eyes and feel your breath, there is no precise boundary between you and the breath. You and the thought, you and the emotion. Everything blends like water, merging with water, turning the question from something to answer to something to sense. Think of the former versions of yourself, the child of 10, tender and fragile, the 15-year-old, uncertain and rebellious, the 20-year-old, passionate and loud, the you of yesterday, tired and full of small burdens, and the you of tonight, lying here, listening to these soft philosophical murmurs. Which of them is truly you, or are they all you? Or is you merely the name for the ship that has changed every plank? You may think I am the sum of them, but even that is a story, a vessel rebuilt piece by piece, keeping only its name. And the quiet beauty is this: you do not need a fixed identity to be yourself, for it is your changing, your impermanence, your gentle shifts, sometimes soft, sometimes painful, that make you whole. A ship does not become another ship merely because its parts change. It becomes another ship when it leaves the journey behind, and humans are the same. We are ourselves, not because everything stays the same, but because we continue to live, to feel, to move through the seasons of change. And when you understand this on a night as still as this one, something within you loosens, the expectation of a perfect self melts. The demand to be unchanging dissolves like mist. Because the truth is, you have always been changing, and that change is your only true identity. allow your breath to settle a little deeper, your eyelids a little heavier. For once you accept that you are a ship forever replacing its planks, drifting, evolving, you begin to see the next question rising gently ahead. If identity changes, does the I remain when memory and emotion and selfhood shift as well? That is where we will go in part 6, the paradox of identity, where the question is no longer, who am I? But do I exist as a unified being at all? Let yourself sink into the softness of your breath, and together we will drift slowly, quietly, into the next mystery of the night. And as the lingering resonance of part 5 drifts softly through you like faint ripples across a darkened surface, as the image of Theseus's ship, with each plank replaced, yet still bearing the same name, floats quietly within your mind, we begin to slide into a deeper layer of contemplation, where the question, who am I, becomes gentler yet more haunting, where the very concept of identity, which we so often take for granted, turns into a subtle paradox that shakes the foundation of our existence. For if a ship can be entirely rebuilt, yet still be called the same ship, what of a human being, creatures who are forever changing with every breath? What remains at the core of this fragile thing we call self? Your body, even in this moment, is transforming cell by cell. Old cells die, new ones rise, blood circulates, electrical signals flash and disappear like fireworks in the night, creating a state of impermanence so total that even you, the one living inside it, cannot mark its beginning or end. And yet, strangely, you feel a continuous thread connecting the child you once were to the person who now lies here in the quiet dark, listening to these soft reflections. It is at this hazy intersection that the paradox of identity opens. The paradox of identity. Like a doorway into a realm that is both dreamlike and undeniably real. If you pause for a moment and remember versions of yourself from years past, the 6-year-old with simple fears and innocent dreams, the 12-year-old confused by a world growing larger, the 18-year-old brimming with hope and anxiety, the 20-year-old carrying early scars, the 25-year-old changed in ways both tender and fierce, and the you of tonight, breathing slowly in the dark, you will see that these selves differ so greatly that, placed side by side, you might hesitate to call them the same person. Yet by some strange continuity, you name them all me. Derek Parfit, in Reasons and Persons, wrote, "Identity is not what matters," suggesting that selfhood is not the solid core we imagine it to be. What truly matters is the continuity, the flowing sequence of mental states, a story forever unfolding. When you think, your emotions shift. When you feel, your memories rewrite themselves. When you breathe, your desires subtly change. All of this forms a river of consciousness, and as Heraclitus once said, no man ever steps in the same river twice, because the river is always changing and so are you. So the question rises like a whisper. If everything changes, what remains? Memory. But memory is unreliable, reconstructed each time you recall it, like a painting altered by every glance. Emotion. But emotion is fragile, shifting with a single word, a single look, a single night of lost sleep. The body. But the body is the most impermanent of all. Consciousness. But consciousness flickers moment to moment like sparks in the dark. So does the self truly exist, or is it a story the mind tells to shield us from the truth that there is no fixed essence within? Nietzsche, On the Genealogy of Morality, wrote, "The self is just a fiction invented to give coherence to the chaos of experience, as though reminding us that the I is a necessary tale, beautiful, comforting, but not absolute, woven to keep us from drowning in the ever-changing sea of ourselves. And if you look deeper, you will notice that self is not a point, but a movement, not an object, but a wave, forever shifting yet giving an illusion of wholeness, like a melody where each note disappears instantly, but the song remains recognizable. With every inhale and exhale, you are no longer the person you were a moment ago, yet the continuity of breath gives you a sense of identity. In the stillness of this night, as all external noise fades and your mind drifts gently with these reflections, you may sense that identity is not something to hold, but something to flow with. A journey, a soft chain of connected moments, each version of you belonging to the same unfolding story. No version is superior. Each is a season, changing, necessary, belonging to the same cycle. And in this realization lies a quiet peace. You do not need to resemble your past selves. You do not need to honor promises made by earlier versions of you. You do not need to remain one thing forever. You are allowed to change, and perhaps your truest identity is the very act of changing. Let your breath soften further, your eyes grow heavier, and let the expectation of a fixed self dissolve like night mist. For when you understand that identity is continuity rather than stability, the journey inward becomes far more spacious and gentle. And just as your mind settles into this softness, another question begins to arise, as delicate as wind brushing through leaves. If identity itself is so uncertain, then what assures you that your choices are free? Do we truly act from freedom, or are we shaped and determined by countless causes long before we choose anything at all? This is the threshold we will cross in Part 7. Free will versus determinism, where freedom and fate intertwine like underground rivers in the depths of the mind. Breathe slowly, and we will continue into the deeper night together. And as the thoughts from Part 6 continue drifting through you like a thin mist settling over the quiet lake of your inner world, where you have just realized that the self is not a solid entity, but a gentle continuity woven from countless shifting versions of who you've been, another question begins to open, soft as breath yet heavy with the weight of centuries of philosophy. If you are always changing, if both mind and body move like the river of Heraclitus, forever flowing, never the same, then are you truly free? Or is the feeling of freedom merely a sweet illusion the mind constructs so that life feels less frightening? If identity is a stream rather than a core, if you're not the same self you were a moment ago, if consciousness is only the foam atop the great ocean of the unconscious, then are the decisions you believe you choose actually yours? Or are they the products of a biological machine where every neural pulse, every memory, every emotion is shaped by causes far beyond your awareness? And at this delicate threshold, we step into one of the oldest, deepest, and most mesmerizing mysteries of human existence. Free will versus determinism, so let your breath slow just a little more, because this journey will carry your mind far, but in a way that is gentle, quiet, and deeply soothing. When you make a decision, whether as large as choosing a career or as small as leaning slightly to the left instead of the right, you believe the choice arises from you, from your personal will, from a freedom you've always assumed you possess. Yet modern neuroscience has shaken that belief in a strangely unsettling way. In 1983, Benjamin Libet conducted a famous experiment whose results rippled through philosophy like a cold wind. The brain made the decision before you became aware of deciding. The readiness potential, a spike of neural activity, appeared hundreds of milliseconds before the moment you felt the intention to act. In other words, when you think "I choose," the brain has already chosen. This does not prove definitively that all choices are unfree, but it opens a profound question. If the brain acts before consciousness, then where does freedom reside? Nietzsche wrote in Twilight of the Idols, "The doer is merely a fiction added to the deed, as if he anticipated what science would only discover centuries later. The action comes first, and the I arrives afterward to narrate that I decided." Think of a moment when you were angry and said words you later regretted. In that moment, it felt as if you were not in control. Perhaps that feeling was not just emotional, but accurate. The anger did not arise because you chose it. It erupted from hormones, old memories, amygdala patterns, all firing long before consciousness stepped forward to claim responsibility. Or consider falling in love without understanding why. It was not your decision. It simply happened, like an underground current sweeping you along. If you listen closely to your inner life, you will notice this in every direction. You do not choose when emotions arise, or which memories surface, or which thoughts visit you. Sometimes you cannot even choose who you will become tomorrow. Everything seems woven from causes invisible to you. Genetics shaping temperament, childhood molding responses, culture bending perception, language framing thought, unconscious patterns steering behavior. If every choice is the echo of countless earlier causes, then what choice is truly free? But if everything is determined, are we merely complex machines, acting out scripts written by biology and environment? Do we only follow what the brain has already decided? Or is there still a gentler, subtler form of freedom that lives not in the origin of decisions, but in the way we meet them? Philosophy has wrestled with this for thousands of years. Some say free will does not exist. Some say it exists only in a narrow band of awareness. Others argue that freedom is not found in choosing, but in understanding. Kant, in Critique of Practical Reason, claimed, "Freedom is not a property of the will, but of reason, meaning that freedom is not doing what you want, but doing what you know is right, a moral freedom that rises above instinct." Spinoza, in Ethics, wrote, "Men believe themselves free because they are conscious of their actions and unconscious of the causes by which they are determined," comparing humans to a falling stone that, if conscious, would believe it chose to fall. So are we stones, or something more? Let your mind drift to the image of a wave. A wave rises and falls, yet it is not separate from the ocean. It has a shape, but that shape is determined by wind, tides, moonlight, and the contours of the sea floor. Still, despite being shaped by countless causes, the wave expresses itself uniquely. Perhaps human freedom resembles that wave, not absolute freedom over causes, but freedom in expression, freedom in response. You cannot choose which emotion arises, but you can choose how to meet it. You cannot choose which memory appears, but you can choose how to hold it. You cannot choose your past, but you can choose how you continue your story. In the quietest moments of night, like now, free will becomes less a philosophical battlefield and more a personal experience, a soft opening, a realization that you are both the flowing river and the one who watches the river flow. Science may say the brain decides first. Philosophy may say causes shape everything. But in this moment, this breath rising and falling, this dim light resting on the walls, this calm expanding in your chest, you sense something undeniably real. You still have the capacity to choose how you live inwardly. Perhaps not every choice is free. Perhaps not every action is autonomous. But the deepest freedom lies in the ability to observe yourself, to see the flowing currents without drowning in them. As Viktor Frankl wrote in Man's Search for Meaning, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose. Freedom may not live in the origin of causes, but in that space, small, delicate, sacred, between what happens and how you respond. And tonight, in this stillness, you're touching that space more clearly than ever. And as your mind softens, deepens, and settles into this gentle oceanus, a new question emerges, guiding you into the next part of your journey. If freedom is uncertain and identity is unstable, what binds the changing versions of you into a single thread across time? What makes you say I when every part of you is different? This is the doorway into Part 8. The paradox of identity and continuity, where we explore the fragile yet miraculous link between all the selves you've ever been. Let your breath stretch a little longer, and together we will drift further into the night. And as the echoes of Part 7, where free will and determinism entwined like underground streams, leaving you unsure whether you are choosing or merely drifting along paths carved long before your awareness arrived, continue to ripple softly through you like the last widening circles on the surface of your inner lake. Another question begins to emerge, quiet and deep like a faint glow in the night. If freedom itself is this fragile, if every decision may be nothing more than the unfolding of prior causes, then what makes us believe that real life is more meaningful than a life built from illusion? If our emotions, memories, joys, and sorrows are all constructed within the brain like internal films, then what difference remains between genuine happiness and happiness created artificially? And at this delicate seam between real and simulated, between choosing and being chosen, between living and being programmed to live, we step into one of the most influential thought experiments of modern philosophy. The experience machine, the idea Robert Nozick introduced in Anarchy, State and Utopia in 1974, confronting humanity with a question both soft and terrifying. If you could live a perfect but artificial life, would you enter the machine? So let your breath grow slow and warm and deep, for though the question is simple, it carries the weight of dreams, fears, and the quietest longings within us. Imagine standing before a remarkable machine, a device capable of immersing you in a fully simulated life that feels indistinguishable from reality. Inside it, you could live any life you desire, become the person you dream of becoming, experience every joy you've ever yearned for, achieve all the successes you never attained in the real world. The machine guarantees you will always feel fulfilled, peaceful, loved, appreciated, successful, never hurt, never lonely, never broken. Every moment is happiness. Every chapter is programmed to give you the best possible experience. The question it asks sounds gentle, but it cuts directly into the essence of existence. Would you step in? If happiness is the ultimate goal, if you chase it endlessly, if every choice you make in life is meant to bring you closer to it, then why not choose the easiest path? The path that guarantees 100% happiness. Why not enter a world free from disappointment, free from loss, free from heartbreak, free from the empty days you've known? Why not live a perfect life? Yet Nozick argued that most people would refuse, not because we crave pain, but because somewhere deep inside, we believe happiness created by a machine is not real happiness. But why not? If the feeling is real, if you feel happy, why isn't that enough? Here, the paradox unfolds like a quiet sigh in the dark. Humans do not merely want to feel happy. Humans want to live happiness. We do not only want emotions, we want those emotions to arise from real experiences, from struggles we faced, choices we made, moments we actually lived. You don't want to love someone in a simulation. You want to love a real person with flaws, wounds, tired days. You don't want to be programmed for success. You want success that came from effort, failure, persistence, growth. You don't want unconditional happiness. You want meaningful happiness. Jean-Paul Sartre wrote in Being a Nothingness, "Man is condemned to be free, as if reminding us that freedom, despite its burdens, is what makes a life truly human. If happiness is separated from freedom, it becomes a sweet but hollow illusion. Perhaps that is why you, too, would hesitate before entering the machine. Not because you reject happiness, but because you want happiness that comes from being present in the truth of your own life. Let your mind rest and follow this thread. In real life, happiness is never flawless. It comes gently, leaves quietly, returns without warning, like waves that touch the shore and retreat. And it is precisely this imperfection that makes happiness precious. If you were happy at every moment, would happiness mean anything? If you never felt pain, would joy still touch you? If everything were always right, would right still have meaning? Think of a small moment when your heart warmed, someone you love laughing, a golden afternoon sunlight, the scent of the first rain, a quiet embrace. These moments are beautiful, not because they are perfect, but because they are human, because they are real. Inside the experience machine, you might receive better versions of those moments, but they would lack one element: reality. Reality with all its rough edges, its scratches, its difficult days, its vulnerable hours. These are the things that deepen you, that make you capable of love, empathy, meaning. Happiness without reality is comfort. Happiness with reality is life. Now imagine entering the machine. Inside, you believe every achievement is yours, but you never truly struggled. You believe you loved, but you never truly risked your heart. You believe you overcame sorrow, but you never truly suffered. You believe you lived, but you were merely programmed to feel you did. And as you imagine this, perhaps you sense a soft sadness rising, like looking at an artificial flower, beautiful, flawless, but without life inside. Nozick wanted to show that humans seek not just pleasure, but meaning, and meaning comes only from the real. No matter how fragile, painful, or imperfect, the real is what makes us alive. Viktor Frankl wrote in Man's Search for Meaning, "Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how." We do not live for happiness, we live for meaning. And tonight, as you lie here with your breath slowing, your eyes growing heavy, you may feel yourself understanding something tender and profound. It is not happiness that keeps us alive, but the authenticity of experience. Even when it wounds us, even when we wish we could hide from it, even when life feels unbearably heavy, we rise again, we choose again, we love again, we keep going, not because the world is perfect, but because the truth of living touches something sacred in us. And as this awareness settles over you like a warm blanket on a winter night, you begin to understand that the experience machine is not merely a philosophical test. It is a reminder that you are alive, that everything you feel, joy, disappointment, longing, hope, is an irreplaceable part of your story. And the moment you realize this, another question begins to form, guiding you toward the next part of your journey. If authentic experience matters so deeply, and if the self changes over time, then what keeps us connected across all these shifting versions of ourselves? What makes us still recognize ourselves despite everything that has changed? This is where the path opens into part 9, the butterfly effect, where even the smallest change can shape a whole new universe of who you might become. Let your breath drift longer, softer, like a quiet wind, and we will continue deeper into the night together. And as the resonance of Part 8 lingers within you like a soft echo of the question if happiness can be programmed, would we still want to live authentically? You may feel your mind slowly opening, like a door gently cracked in the dark for the night wind to slip through, carrying with it a quiet awareness that life is fragile, that every choice you make, even the smallest ones that seem meaningless, can lead you toward a completely different existence. And within that fragility, a new mystery appears, delicate as a floating speck of dust catching the faintest light in a dark room. The butterfly effect, where the flutter of a tiny wing might trigger a storm on the other side of the world, where your future is so sensitive that a single small change can open paths that will transform you into someone you could never predict. Let your breath soften and slow, for this journey will take you into the hidden threads, connecting the smallest moments of your life. Imagine standing in a quiet forest. Light drips through leaves, the wind is gentle, and on a thin branch, a butterfly trembles its fragile wings. You look at it and think, this movement means nothing, a slight vibration, weightless and silent. Yet in chaos theory, that flutter can begin a chain of events, tiny shifts in air pressure, then larger shifts in atmospheric flow, growing and growing until they culminate in a storm continents away. The strange beauty is that all complex systems respond to the smallest disturbances, and human life is the same. You think the little things in your day, being delayed by 5 seconds, a glance you don't notice, a road you turn down simply because you feel like it, a sentence you almost don't say, don't matter. But those small things are quietly steering you into a future utterly different from the one you'd reach otherwise. Think of someone you once met by accident, someone you were never meant to cross paths with in any planned way. A chance meeting in a cafe, a brief conversation on a bus, a message you almost didn't reply to but did at the last second. Those tiny moments, those faint ripples, can redirect your entire life. Sometimes that person becomes someone you love. Sometimes they offer you a job you never imagined. Sometimes they shift how you see the world forever. And all of it began from something you already forgot, something that felt like nothing at all. Edward Lorenz, the mathematician behind the butterfly effect, wrote, "When a butterfly flaps its wings in one part of the world, it can eventually cause a tornado in another. But the beauty of this idea does not lie in the storm, it lies in the butterfly, in the reminder that what is delicate, quiet, and almost invisible can shape the future in unimaginable ways. And the same is true of the smallest parts of you, your fleeting thoughts, your gentle feelings, your tiny choices. Let your mind touch a small memory, any memory. A day you walked instead of driving, a moment you chose a different seat in a familiar cafe, a time you said yes when you meant to say no, a train you happened to miss, an opportunity you nearly walked past but finally reached for. Everything you're experiencing tonight grows from tiny, seemingly insignificant branches of the past, branches you didn't know mattered. And perhaps the point is not to foresee the future, but to realize that the future is always open, always sensitive, always ready to shift with even the smallest gesture. That thought is not frightening. It invites you to live more deeply in each moment. Imagine standing before countless doors, each one leading to a different future. Sometimes you choose without knowing. Sometimes life chooses for you. Sometimes a door opens simply because you walked half a second slower or because you smiled at someone without realizing they would change your life. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once wrote, "The present moment is the only moment available to us, and it is the doorway to all moments. The present is the entrance to every possible future. Everything you will become begins from the tiniest moment you are living right now. If you listen closely, you'll see the butterfly effect is not just about the future, it is about you. Words someone once said that hurt you for years, that is a butterfly's wing. A moment of kindness that carried you through darkness, that is also a wing. Beliefs planted in your childhood, you are good, you are nothing, you are worthy, you will fail. All of them became the architecture of the person lying here tonight. And the most beautiful truth of the butterfly effect is not destruction or chaos, but this gentle reminder. The smallest things you do today may become the greatest gifts for your future self. A kind word you offer, a tender thought you cultivate, a slow breath you take, a moment of forgiveness, a decision to soften instead of harden, a choice to slow down instead of rush. All of these tiny acts can shift the direction of your entire life. And in the quiet of this moment, as you let yourself sink into the softness of the night, you can feel something subtle but real. Right now, you're shaping your future simply by listening, breathing, and opening your heart to yourself. You may have believed your small actions didn't matter, that you were too insignificant to create change, that your life was already predetermined. But the butterfly effect gently tells you that every breath, every choice, every thought, no matter how faint, like a wing beating in the dark, can alter the course of your life. And if you let your mind drift a little further, you may sense another question rising. If the future is so sensitive to the tiniest change, does causality always move in one direction? Could something in the future ever become the cause of something in the past? That question guides you toward part 10, reverse causality, where cause and effect twist into loops and time becomes a mirror with two sides. Let your breath slow, just one more beat, soft and deep, and together we will continue further, deeper into the night. And as the echoes of part 9 continue to shimmer softly within you, like the lingering whisper of a butterfly's wing brushing against the surface of your mind, an echo that reminds you how even the most delicate change can send your future flowing into an entirely different direction, a strange new sensation begins to unfurl, as though the boundary between before and after, between cause and effect, were slowly dissolving, softening, melting into the quiet darkness. If a butterfly's wing can create a storm, then could the storm, in some mysterious way, ripple backward and influence that very first wing beat? If a small choice in the past can create a vast future, could that future ever loop back, twist into the past, and become the force that shaped the choice in the first place? And within that wavering uncertainty, like a thin silver thread spiraling through the air, we slip into one of the deepest, most beautiful, and most mind-softening paradoxes ever imagined. Reverse causality, where an outcome does not merely follow from a cause, but seems to become the cause of its own cause, forming a gentle loop the way time itself sometimes appears to bend. So let your breath become slow, even feather light, for we are stepping into the space where time is no longer the straight line you once believed it to be. If you look closely at your life, there are moments that feel as if the future were whispering to you, guiding you towards something not yet written, something you cannot name yet somehow sense. Perhaps you once made a choice that, in hindsight, feels as though the thing that was coming had been pulling you toward it long before your conscious mind ever understood. A fateful encounter, an unexpected decision, a sudden urge to turn down a road you'd never taken. These moments make people wonder whether sometimes the effect arrives first in intuition, and only later do we create the cause that makes sense of it. And that strange feeling is the seed of reverse causality, a world where time is not a rigid sequence but a soft curve, a circle of invisible threads linking the present to the future in ways language struggles to capture. Modern philosophy has asked, if we could send a tiny piece of information back in time, enough for our past self to make a different decision, would that decision be a cause or an effect? Such a loop breaks every intuitive rule of logic, leaving us unsure where the beginning lies. The most famous version of this idea is the bootstrap paradox, where something exists without a clear origin because it is passed from the future to the past, and then from the past to the future, forming a seamless loop. In Robert A. Heinlein's By His Bootstraps, the protagonist receives instructions from, astonishingly, his future self, and then becomes the one who sends those same instructions back in time. No one wrote them. No one created them. They simply exist, suspended in a timeless cycle. What is astonishing is that such paradoxes are not confined to fiction. In quantum physics, backward influence is no longer considered impossible. John Wheeler's delayed choice experiment, for instance, suggests that the present can influence how a photon behaved in the past. Wheeler once wrote a line that sent shivers through the scientific community. The past is not really the past until we observe it. In other words, observation in the present seems to determine a particle's state before the observation happens, a subtle form of reverse causality so strange it almost feels poetic. But what makes this theme beautiful in the stillness of night is not its physics, but its resonance with the human inner world. If you look deeply into your life, you will find moments that appear to be effects, but behave like causes. You meet someone and feel as if you have known them forever, like the future of that relationship has been calling to you long before the introduction took place. You carry a dream you never dared to name, yet life mysteriously delivers you to moments that make that dream inevitable, almost as if the dream in your future had been gently pulling you toward it. You endure a heartbreak so devastating you think it will end you, only to discover years later that it became the very foundation for a wiser, stronger version of yourself, one you could never have become without that pain. In hindsight, it feels as though your future self, the you who would grow from that pain, was the one giving you the strength to face it. The result became the cause. Reverse causality is not just the loop of time, it is the loop of meaning. Carl Jung wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And sometimes, what you call fate is not the event that happens after your action, but the whisper of your future self, guiding, nudging, pulling you toward the person you are meant to become." Think of a time you had a powerful intuition, a decision, a direction, a person, a place, a letting go, a beginning. You had no rational explanation for that feeling, yet you followed it. And years later, looking back, you realized that intuition was the doorway to an entire path, a path that feels almost as if it had been waiting for you. If life were a book, we assume we are living today's page without seeing tomorrow's. But what if tomorrow's page has already been written in faint ink, and today is simply how you find your way toward it? Paradoxical, but so gently beautiful that you almost want to breathe slower, deeper, as though you had just brushed against a hidden truth beneath the layers of time. Let your mind drift to another image. You're standing on a dimly lit road, warm golden light stretching into the distance, and far ahead you see a faint glimmer you cannot name. You walk toward it not because you see it clearly, but because the light, your future, seems to call you softly. And you go, step by step, without knowing why. But you go. This is reverse causality in life, the future calling the present. And when you surrender to this feeling, this sense that time is no longer pushing you forward, but folding gently around you, you find yourself in a rare state, both the one who walks and the one who is guided. And in this half-dreaming, half-awake state, another question slowly rises. If causality can twist itself like this, if the future can influence the present, and if the present can reshape the past through memory, then is the self truly continuous? Or is it just a series of reflections spiraling through time? This question leads you into part 11, confirmation bias, where you will see that sometimes you do not perceive reality as it is, but as you need it to be. Let your breath lengthen, soft and slow, and together we will drift deeper into the night. And as the wondrous reflections of reverse causality from part 10 continue to hover softly within you, when the idea that the future can sometimes bend back and press its fingertips against the present makes time feel like a silken ribbon gently shifting with the rhythm of your own breath, a new question begins to unfurl, delicate as the sound of a single leaf falling in the night. If causality itself can be bent, if what we call cause and effect can trade places, then what assures us that our perception, the lens through which we look at the world, is not also bending in its own hidden way? What makes us believe we are seeing reality as it truly is, when perhaps we are only looking at it through a soft veil woven from beliefs we have carried for so long? And this is where confirmation bias emerges. The deep human tendency to believe what we want to believe, to cling to what is familiar, and to disregard everything that contradicts those beliefs. Let your mind slow down one more gentle beat, for this journey will reach into layers within you, layers you may never have illuminated with such a soft, calming light until now. Imagine yourself holding a lantern in your hand, walking down the vast dark road of perception. The lantern's glow covers only a tiny portion of the world around you. Yet instead of realizing that you are seeing only a fragment of truth, you begin to believe that the fragment is the whole world. That is confirmation bias, when you search for, remember, and pay attention only to the things that support your existing beliefs, while everything else fades quietly into the shadows. And the strange thing is, you do not do this consciously. You do not intentionally ignore reality. The brain does it on your behalf to protect the fragile sense of safety that your identity depends on. Think about a time when you believed someone disliked you. Immediately, every tiny gesture, every short reply, every distracted moment, every neutral glance became proof that your belief was correct. But the times they were kind, the ways they supported you, the small signs of care, they slipped past you unnoticed. Confirmation. Bias does not distort only truth. It distorts emotion, relationships, and the way you see yourself. Recall a belief you once held tightly. Perhaps you believed you were not good enough, and every mistake became evidence. But every success, every compliment, every moment you shone, you dismissed. This is why Nietzsche wrote in Human, all too human. There are no facts, only interpretations. We do not see the world with our eyes. We see it through the architecture of the beliefs we have unconsciously built over years. When you enter a debate, if you already believe something, you seek arguments that support it. You disregard everything that challenges it. This is not stubbornness. It is the brain's survival mechanism. The brain hates contradiction. It does not want to be torn between opposing ideas, and to avoid that, it favors what feels familiar. It chooses comfort over truth. Confirmation. Bias is not only present in the big beliefs you hold about life, it is present in every breath. When you like someone, you overlook their flaws. When you dislike someone, you magnify the smallest mistake. When you believe life is kind to you, you notice signs of kindness everywhere. When you believe life is against you, you also find evidence. The brain does not care about accuracy. It cares about consistency. And in this quiet night, as you slip slowly into that gentle state between waking and drifting, you can feel that confirmation bias is not merely a cognitive error. It is a doorway into understanding yourself more deeply. For if you know that the brain sees only what it wants to see, then perhaps you can begin to loosen the beliefs that hurt you. You may begin to see the world through a wider light. You may stop believing that negative feelings are proof of anything. They are simply temporary lenses through which you view the world. When you feel insecure, everything looks like a threat. When you feel sad, everything looks like loss. When you feel lonely, everything looks like distance. But that is not the truth of the world. It is the truth of the lens you are wearing. Imagine standing before a large mirror, but the mirror is covered with a thin mist. When you look into it, you see yourself blurred, incomplete, insufficient. But the flaw is not in you. The flaw is in the mist. Confirmation. Bias is that mist, softly obscuring truth, making you believe the reflection is all there is, when in reality, an entire, clearer world is waiting behind it. Buddha once said, "What you think, you become." But here is the deeper truth few people notice. You do not only become what you think, you only see what you think. If you believe the world is gentle, you will find gentleness. If you believe you deserve love, you will notice the hands reaching toward you. If you believe change is possible, you will begin to see paths opening where before there were none. And the miracle is this. When you change your beliefs, the world changes its colors. Not because the world changed, but because your confirmation bias shifted direction. Let your mind drift into a beautiful memory, any moment that once made you feel deeply alive. Recall the warmth of that feeling. Then notice this truth. That memory never left you. That joy never vanished. But on darker days, you cannot see it, not because it disappeared, but because the brain, clouded by a painful belief, did not choose it to illuminate your world. Confirmation. Bias may be the inner cage we carry, but when understood, it becomes the key to unlocking that cage. If you want to see hope, nurture the belief in hope. If you want to see love, believe that you are worthy of love. If you want to see doors opening, trust that you are allowed to walk through them. Belief does not create the future, but it creates the lens that leads you to the future. And now, as your breath slows, as this voice begins to blend with the rhythm of your heartbeat, you can feel something quietly shifting inside you. You're not merely the product of old beliefs. You are the one who can choose new ones, softer ones, kinder ones, more peaceful ones. And from this tender inner space, another question begins to arise. If the brain tends to see only what it wants to see, then what happens when what it wants is to avoid pain, when false beliefs are reinforced by strong emotion, anchoring themselves deep within us? What happens when a tiny piece of information becomes the reference point for everything we interpret afterward? The answer awaits in Part 12, Anchoring Bias, where a small detail can become the anchor that shapes the entire way you perceive your life. Let your breath drift softly, and together we will continue deeper into the night. And as the reflections from Part 11 continue drifting within you like an underground stream, when you've just realized that your mind does not see the world as it is, but only as it wants to see, a new doorway slowly opens inside you, gentle as the wind brushing through leaves in the quiet of night. For if we only ever notice what aligns with our pre-existing beliefs, then what shapes those beliefs in the first place? What allows a tiny, seemingly irrelevant fragment of information to bury itself deep inside the mind and silently govern everything we judge afterward. And it is exactly at this intersection between unconscious impression and first influence that anchoring bias arises. The strange tendency for the very first piece of information, no matter how accidental or fragile, to become an anchor dropped into the seabed of the soul, holding our perception in place without us ever realizing it. Let your breath soften, for this journey will touch the delicate origins of thoughts you once assumed were random beginnings, only to discover they were the seeds shaping your inner world for years. Imagine yourself standing in a dark, quiet space, and before you hangs a floating scale. You place a single number onto it, any number. Then, as you add more numbers, no matter how objective you try to be, each of them drifts toward that first number, as if pulled by an invisible gravity. That first number is the anchor. And it does not exist only in math. It exists in emotion, in the people you meet, in the choices you make, and in the things you believe about yourself. Daniel Kahneman, Nobel laureate and father of behavioral psychology, once wrote in Thinking, Fast and Slow, "The anchoring effect occurs when people consider a particular value for an unknown quantity before estimating that quantity. All it means is this: the moment you see, hear, imagine, or even guess a starting value, every judgment after is pulled toward it, quietly, unconsciously. You believe you are deciding freely, but in truth, most of the time, you are simply obeying the anchor. Think about the first time you met someone. If they smiled at you, even for a moment, your mind anchored them as kind, and every action afterward was filtered through that softness. And if they frowned or seemed distant, even briefly, you anchored them as cold, and that tint remained, no matter how much warmth they showed later. A few first seconds, just seconds, became the silent architect of your perception. Think about a compliment you received as a child. You're very capable. That became an anchor, shaping your courage, your willingness to try, your belief in yourself. And think of a criticism, you're not good enough. That too became an anchor, weaving itself into your decisions, your hesitations, your fears. These tiny sentences, barely a whisper, stayed with you for years. Anchoring even appears in something as mundane as shopping. You see original price, $200, now only $100, and you feel lucky, because the anchor, the $200, tells you what to think. You do not know the true value. You only know the anchor. Anchoring bias also seeps into love. When someone captivates you at first sight, with their voice, their eyes, their gentleness, you anchor them with beauty, with depth, with meaning. And afterward, you interpret everything they do through the glow of that first impression. Sometimes, heartbreak doesn't come from who they truly are. It comes from how beautiful your anchor was. Anchoring also shapes how you see yourself. One failure can anchor you into believing you are inadequate. One moment of recognition can anchor you into believing you are capable. One painful memory can anchor you into fearing love. One small wound can anchor you into doubting your worth. And the most striking part is this: these anchors form at the most vulnerable moments, when you were young, hurt, tired, lonely, or longing to be understood. Those are the moments that carve deepest. But why does the brain work like this? Because it hates uncertainty. When it lacks clarity, it clings to the first thing it sees. It wants stability. It wants a starting point. And sometimes, tragically, the starting point becomes the chain that ties your perception for years. But here, in the gentle darkness of this night, as your breath lightens like a soft breeze drifting through your chest, there is something essential you must know. The first anchor is not destiny. It's only a beginning. You can create new anchors. If you wish to see yourself as enough, anchor yourself in the small moments you've done well. If you wish to heal fear, anchor yourself in gentle, safe experiences. If you wish to believe in love again, let your anchor be your own tenderness, your own sincerity, your own quiet willingness to be soft with yourself. Nietzsche once wrote in "Thus Spoke Zarathustra," "Become who you are." But to become who you are, you sometimes must lower the old anchor and quietly raise a new one. Let your breath slow and feel this truth settle in you. You're not defined by someone's first impression of you. You're not defined by a past failure. You're not defined by an old anchor placed in your mind before you knew how to protect yourself. You have the right to shift toward gentler light, to re-anchor yourself in something truer, something softer, something that helps you grow. And as this awareness spreads through you like the last golden light of day, another question begins to form. If a tiny, accidental piece of information can shape your perception so strongly, then what happens when false information is repeated again and again? Long enough, loud enough, often enough? What happens when the mind hears a lie so many times that it begins to accept it as truth? That question invites you into part 13, the illusory truth effect, where we explore why the mind believes what is repeated, even when it isn't real. Let your breath drift long and soft, and together we will continue deeper into the night. And as the resonance of part 12 still ripples faintly within you like the soft echo of an anchor, slowly sinking into the seabed of your unconscious, when you've just realized that a single initial impression can shape the way you perceive a person, an event, or even your own worth. Another question begins to rise, quiet as a thin wave moving through the depth of night. If one first impression can create an anchor, then what happens when that impression is not just made once, but repeated again and again, whispering through your mind like the wind slipping between leaves? What happens when something false, repeated often enough, becomes true simply because your mind has grown familiar with it? And at this delicate threshold, where repetition blends with perception, the illusory truth effect opens its door, revealing how the human mind begins to believe falsehoods simply because it has heard them too many times, as if familiarity alone could masquerade as truth. Let your breath loosen, let your heartbeat soften, for this journey will lead us into the deepest chambers of the psyche, where truth is not always what is real, but often what is repeated. Imagine yourself standing in a dark room, facing a door you have never opened. Someone tells you there is something frightening behind it. You don't know whether this is true, but the sentence plants an image, your first impression. Later, someone else repeats the same warning. Then you overhear it from a conversation you weren't even part of. No evidence, no verification, only repetition. But repetition begins to feel like truth. The mind does not distinguish between accurate and familiar. It only chooses what is easiest to process. Daniel Kahneman calls this cognitive ease, the comfort of simplicity. What is familiar, we believe. What is repeated, we accept. And so the illusory truth effect drifts into our lives like a thin mist. Think of a belief you carried through childhood, that you weren't good enough, that you had to be strong, that you were incapable, that you were unworthy. These beliefs did not become true because they were right. They became true because they were repeated by others, and more painfully, by yourself. Humans don't only believe the words spoken aloud, they believe the words whispered inward. Nietzsche once wrote in The Gay Science, We are accustomed to lying to ourselves. The tragedy is that eventually we forget they were lies at all. Recall a rumor you once heard. The first time, you doubted it. The second time, you paid attention. The third time, you considered it possible. By the 10th time, you accepted it as obvious. Not because you verified it, but because your mind had grown familiar with the story. And this effect doesn't only shape society, media, or gossip. It shapes love, fear, insecurity, and the entire narrative through which you interpret the world. If you tell yourself repeatedly that you are not capable, your mind will accept it. If you tell yourself that no one truly understands you, your mind will look for evidence. But the most beautiful truth about the illusory truth effect is that it works both ways. If you can believe in something false simply because it is repeated, you can also believe in something healing by repeating it long enough. If each night you whisper to yourself that you are worthy, that you are enough, that you are growing, that you are becoming softer and stronger in your own way, that you are safe, one day these words will become your new truth, not because they were scientifically proven, but because they were lovingly repeated. The illusory truth effect gently reminds us that truth is often just the story we tell ourselves the most, and as your breath lengthens, slows, warms, you may feel a new understanding blooming inside you. You can choose the stories you repeat. You can choose which truth to cultivate. You can choose the words your heart has longed to hear. And just as that awareness softens through you like a warm light in the quiet of night, another question begins to touch your mind. If repeated words can become truth, what about the things that are not repeated with words, but repeated with incompletion? What about the tasks left unfinished, the conversations left open, the dreams left dangling? How tightly can those fragments hold on to the mind? That question leads you into part 14, the Zeigarnik effect, where unfinished things become threads pulling at the edges of consciousness, making it hard to sleep, hard to release, hard to step away from yourself. Let your breath drift like a gentle stream, and together we'll step deeper into the night. And as the echoes of part 13 continue to drift through you like soft ripples born from a phrase repeated too many times, when you've just realized how easily the mind turns the familiar into the true, how repetition can build a cage from the inside out, another question slowly rises, faint as the murmur from a half-closed door. If spoken repetition can shape belief, then what happens when it is not words that repeat, but unfinished things? What happens when the incomplete circles of your life replay themselves in your mind, looping endlessly like a breath that never fully exhales? What happens when something left open, unresolved, becomes a quiet, gravitational pull, dragging your thoughts backward, preventing release, preventing rest, preventing sleep? And at this invisible border between what is completed and what is left undone, the Zeigarnik effect reveals itself, a mist-covered threshold where the mind is bound not by what is finished, but by what remains unclosed. Let your breath slow, soft and deep, because we are about to enter a psychological space where even the smallest crack can echo endlessly. Imagine your mind as a room filled with doors. Some doors are shut, silent, still, without weight, but others are half open, never fully closed. These are the ones that let the wind in, creating a thin, persistent whistle that reminds you something remains unfinished. This is the Zeigarnik effect, the tendency of the human mind to remember and be haunted by unfinished tasks far more intensely than completed ones. Bluma Zeigarnik discovered that when someone is interrupted mid-task, they recall it with striking clarity because the mind opens a loop, and unless the loop is closed, It keeps turning like a current searching for an exit. But the most beautiful and painful truth is this. The effect does not only apply to tasks, it applies to memory, to emotion, to people, to conversations left incomplete, to apologies never spoken, to breakups without explanation, to dialogues cut short, to desires half expressed, to dreams abandoned in the middle, to goodbyes that never felt final, leaving the heart replaying the same unanswered question. Why? Freud once wrote in The Interpretation of Dreams, "Unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways. Unspoken feelings, unresolved endings, they do not fade. They become open circles inside you, returning in dreams, in silence, or on nights when you wish to sleep, but your mind refuses to dim. Think of an unread message you still haven't answered. Think of someone you haven't truly let go of. Think of an argument left hanging in the air. Think of a decision you postponed until it dissolved into regret. Each is a loop, and your mind, like a machine that despises incompleteness, keeps spinning around it. This is why unfinished stories linger, why unresolved relationships ache, why things you never completed weigh more heavily than things you finished. And strangely, this incompleteness makes humans deeper. If everything ended neatly, if every story closed beautifully, if every chapter resolved itself perfectly, perhaps life would lose its weight, and the soul its depth. Unfinished moments, no matter how painful, shape the truest parts of who we are. Victor Hugo once wrote in Les Misérables, "There is nothing like a dream to create the future, and the dreams left unfinished, the ones still tender inside you, are often the very forces urging you forward, calling you to continue the story your heart still carries." Let your mind drift to an unfinished memory. Someone you haven't forgiven, a wish you never voiced, a truth you swallowed years ago. Look at it gently, as if it were an old piece of paper tucked in a drawer. It is not a burden. It is simply a loop waiting for closure. And the remarkable thing is, closure does not always require action. Sometimes closure is forgiveness. Sometimes closure is honesty. Sometimes closure is acceptance. And sometimes closure is simply acknowledging that not everything in life will be complete, and letting that be enough. As your breath deepens and your mind softens into the quiet of the night, you may notice something subtle. Releasing an open loop is not an ending. It is a form of liberation. And in this gentle moment, another question begins to rise. If unfinished things can haunt us so powerfully, what happens when someone uses these open loops to influence us? What happens when prohibition, its own unique kind of incompletion, creates a gravitational pull toward the very thing we're told to avoid? The answer awaits in Part 15, Reverse Psychology, where the forbidden becomes the most irresistible desire. Take a slow, soft breath, and together we'll continue deeper into the night. And as the resonance of Part 14 continues drifting through you like the last thin thread of smoke rising from a candle not yet fully extinguished, when you've just felt how unfinished stories, unresolved emotions, and dangling moments can cling to the mind more tightly than anything already complete, another question slowly unfolds, delicate as if it has stepped out from the empty space itself. If incompletion can anchor the mind so powerfully, what happens when someone intentionally creates that incompletion? What happens when prohibition, restriction, or a subtle withholding becomes an invisible hook pulling you toward what you are told to avoid? Why is it that the more you hear, "don't," the more you want to do it? Why does being pushed away make you want to walk closer? And in that mysterious threshold between instinctive freedom and instinctive rebellion, reverse psychology appears like a faint blue light shimmering in the dark, revealing that human beings don't only desire what they love, they also desire what they're not allowed to love. Let your breath soften and let your mind ease open, because this journey touches the deepest chambers of human nature, the part that longs to choose itself, even if that means stepping in the opposite direction of advice, warning, or expectation. Imagine yourself as a child and someone tells you, "Don't touch that." Suddenly, the object you ignored a moment ago becomes the center of your universe. Not because you need it, not because you truly want it, but because you've just been reminded you cannot have it. Prohibition doesn't only affect behavior, it stirs the ego. And the ego carries a profound instinct, the need to be free, to self-direct, to exist on its own terms. When constrained, the ego reacts like a bird trapped in a cage. It beats its wings harder, louder, more fiercely, asserting it cannot be subdued. This is what makes reverse psychology one of the most fascinating paradoxes of the human psyche. People resist control, even when the control is meant to help them. As psychologist Jack Brame described in his theory of psychological reactance, when human freedom feels threatened, the desire to reclaim that freedom intensifies, often pulling us directly toward the forbidden behavior itself. This is not just true for children. It is true for you, for everyone, in every stage of life. Think of a relationship you once lived through. Were there moments when the more someone tried to control you, the more you wanted to break free? Or the more someone ignored you, the more you wanted to prove your worth? Think of the warnings you received growing up. Don't do this, don't go there, don't choose that. And notice how those very things became the objects of your deepest curiosity. Freud wrote in Civilization and Its Discontents, "Where the instinct resists, the desire grows stronger. An instinct suppressed does not disappear. It resurfaces with more force." Reverse psychology is simply the elegant surface of that instinct. When someone pushes you away, sometimes you step closer, not because you truly desire them, but because you desire to reclaim the freedom of choosing for yourself. When someone tells you don't worry, your mind grows more anxious because your brain interprets the command as a warning. When someone tries too hard to persuade you, you distrust them. But when someone steps back and says, "It's your choice," your inner resistance softens. Reverse psychology is clearest in love. When someone withdraws, suddenly they become more alluring. When someone loses interest, you long to gain it back. Not because they are deserving, but because their absence activates a zygonic loop in your heart. A story cut short, a connection unresolved, a door left half open. And the heart, like the mind, gravitates toward what is unfinished. What's most surprising is that humans do not rebel because they are stubborn. They rebel because they are alive. The need for freedom is biological, psychological, spiritual. Freedom is the backbone of existence. Nietzsche wrote in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, "I am no man, I am dynamite," as if reminding us that the human self refuses to remain confined to any one form, label, or boundary. When someone attempts to mold you, you resist, even if their desire is to protect you. Reverse psychology rests on this truth. The more forcefully you are directed, the more intensely you crave the opposite. The more something is forbidden, the more your inner world claims it. Not because the forbidden thing is inherently valuable, but because the self inside you longs to move in its own rhythm. Think of the desires you once felt simply because they were forbidden. A love at the wrong time, a choice everyone doubted, a dream others told you was out of reach. And it was precisely the doubt, the restriction, the disbelief that made you want to push further. Reverse psychology is not only a reaction. Sometimes it is the force that propels you into territories you never knew you could enter. Yet this same force makes you vulnerable to manipulation. People who understand the power of prohibition can wield it against you. They withdraw affection to make you chase. They speak the opposite of what they want, so you will act according to their plan. They use silence to create longing. They pull back at strategic moments so you fear losing them, and in fearing loss, you cling tighter. But here, in this quiet night, with your breath slowing and softening like ripples settling on still water, a gentler truth emerges beneath all of this. Reverse psychology reveals how fiercely humans cherish freedom. And that is not a flaw. It is the flame that keeps you alive, keeps you growing, keeps you reaching for the things your heart yearns for. That is why forbidden love burns deeper. That is why dreams grow stronger when doubted. That is why you rise higher when the world tries to hold you down. Reverse psychology is the reminder that if you want to understand someone, do not watch what they comply with, watch what they resist. Resistance is the voice of the soul. And as your mind drifts into a quiet, serene state, soft as the surface of a night lake, another question appears at the far end of your thoughts. If humans rebel when controlled, what happens when the control becomes more subtle? When it no longer forbids, but distorts, bending your sense of reality until you question your own memories, your own feelings, your own truth? That question leads you directly into part 16, gaslighting, where manipulation is no longer loud but whispered, where reality is reshaped not by force, but by doubt. Take one slow, gentle breath, and together we will descend deeper into the night. And as the lingering resonance of part 15 continues to hum quietly within you like the soft ripples of a silent inner rebellion, when you have just realized that human nature instinctively reaches toward freedom, toward its own sacred space, toward the deep-rooted desire to protect the self from any form of imposition, restriction, or control, another question slowly takes shape, rising like a muted shadow swelling in the sky of your inner world. What happens when control no longer appears as prohibition, when no one says don't, when no one restrains you through force or command, but instead uses something far more subtle, something that makes you doubt your own mind? What happens when no one pushes you away from your freedom, because you begin to step away from it on your own? And this is precisely where gaslighting emerges, one of the most elusive and ruthless forms of manipulation, in which the manipulator needs no chains, no threats, no raised voice. They only need to plant doubt in your memory, your emotions, and your perception until you lose your way, not in the world outside, but in the world inside yourself. Let your breath fall slowly, like a leaf settling on still water, for this journey will lead you into a fragile, hidden chamber of the soul, where sometimes the force that blinds you is not the darkness, but a false light. Imagine you are holding a lantern and someone beside you says it isn't lit even though the warm gold glow clearly spreads across your palms. At first, you laugh it off, thinking they are joking. But they say it again, and again, and again, each time with more certainty, more calmness, more softness, until their tone makes you feel as if you are remembering wrong, sensing wrong, imagining things, and so you begin to question yourself. This is how gaslighting operates. It dismantles your inner reality by making you believe you cannot trust your own mind, forcing you to rely on the manipulator to tell you what is true. One day they tell you you're too sensitive. Another day they insist you misremember. One moment they deny words spoken in anger. The next, they become the victim, making you feel guilty for their actions. Slowly, truth becomes a shattered mirror, and you pick up its sharp fragments, believing you are responsible for every cut it leaves on your hands. Gaslighting is not a direct attack. It is a choreography of subtle denials, delicate distortions, and carefully placed doubts. It turns you into someone who apologizes for things you didn't do, someone who questions what you clearly saw, someone who tries endlessly to be better despite never being wrong. In the 1938 play Gaslight, which gave birth to the term, the husband dims the gas lamps in the house and then denies it, causing his wife to believe she is losing her sanity. No yelling, no threats, just enough doubt to fracture her sense of reality. Freud once wrote in introductory lectures on psychoanalysis, "He that has eyes to see and ears to hear may convince himself that no mortal can keep a secret, but gaslighting twists this. It convinces you that you are the secret, that you are the flaw, that your emotions are distorted, that your memory is unreliable. Think of a time you wondered, maybe I overreacted, maybe I exaggerated, maybe I remembered wrong. Were those doubts truly yours? Or were they planted in you by words as soft as silk but as sharp as a blade? Sentences like, "You're imagining things." "I never said that." "You always overreact." "You're remembering it wrong." "You're too emotional." "No one else thinks this way." "You make everything a big deal." These are not explanations but erasures, not reflections of truth but mechanisms designed to make you distrust your own inner compass. Gaslighting makes you ask, am I losing myself? In love, it is one of the most destructive forms of manipulation. Your partner denies, twists, rewrites, until you apologize for wounds you never caused. In families, it turns parents into judges and children into defendants on trial for their own emotions. In workplaces, it makes capable people shrink, dimming their own light because they can no longer trust their abilities. Gaslighting requires no insults, no violence, only a steady drip of doubt, a quiet suffocation of your truth. But in this quiet night, as your breath grows deeper and your mind softens, there is something you must remember. No one has the right to define your reality for you. No one has the right to invalidate your feelings. No one has the right to rewrite your memory to maintain their power. No one has the right to plant doubt at the center of your being. Carl Jung once said in Modern Man in Search of a Soul, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, yet gaslighting steals that privilege by reshaping you into the mold of someone else's convenience. And yet a quiet truth remains. Though gaslighting can distort perception, it cannot extinguish intuition. There is a part of you, deep, ancient, quiet, that always senses when something is wrong, when your truth is being pulled away from you, when you are shrinking to fit someone else's comfort. A soft unease, a wordless sorrow, a subtle exhaustion, a whisper inside asking, why don't I feel like myself anymore? Trust that whisper. It cannot be manipulated. It is the root of reality inside you. As your breath slows, you may feel it awakening again, small, steady, unbroken. Gaslighting can delay the truth, but it can never erase the light within you. You are not who the manipulator says you are. You are who you become when you see yourself clearly again. And at the very moment this realization settles gently in you, another question rises from the depths of this night. If gaslighting can make you doubt your own memory, what happens when manipulation targets not only perception, but the entire architecture of your mind, when someone doesn't merely unbalance you, but rewrites you from within? That question leads us into Part 17, Brainwashing, where the mind is not just bent, but rebuilt from the roots. Let your breath flow long and warm, and together we will continue into the deep night. And as the echo of part 16 still trembles softly within you like the wavering glow of a lantern on the verge of going out, when you have just walked through the deep chambers of gaslighting, where someone can make you doubt your memory, your emotions, and even the very edges of your own perception, another truth begins to drift toward you like a cold stream tracing down your spine. If manipulation can begin with a single denial, a gentle sentence strong enough to blur the boundary between the real and the unreal, then what happens when every boundary is erased? When control no longer stops at perception but expands, infiltrating the entire inner world, dismantling the foundations of the self, and rebuilding them in the image of the manipulator. That is when brainwashing steps forward, a vast shadow stretching across the mind, no longer dimming pieces of reality, but severing a person from reality altogether. Let your breath fall slow and deep, as though you are sitting in a wide, empty room where only the echo of your own heartbeat remains. Because this journey leads you into a psychological terrain, not only deep, but dark, where people are not broken by physical force, but by isolation, exhaustion, and the slow, deliberate insertion of beliefs into a mind softened by fatigue. Brainwashing begins with isolation. Not just isolation from society, but isolation from truth itself. The target is separated from the people they love, from friends, from alternative perspectives, from any source of emotional or intellectual grounding. Isolation becomes the first wall, making the mind lose all its mirrors. Those who once could say, "I see you, I understand. You're not imagining this." Without these reflections, reality collapses into a single direction, the direction dictated by the manipulator. Then comes the second stage, psychological exhaustion. The mind is weakened not through violence, but through stress, fear, sleep deprivation, prolonged loneliness, constant confusion, or through the steady drip of criticism, blame, and disappointment, each repetition like the tap of an invisible mallet. When the mind becomes tired enough, its natural defenses fail. It no longer resists. It merely reaches for whatever feels stable, even if that stability is a lie. In that moment of fragility, when the mind is weary and almost hollow, the third stage appears. The insertion of new beliefs. These beliefs do not enter all at once. They slip in piece by piece, story by story, repeated again and again until the brain begins to mistake repetition for truth. It is the same mechanism you encountered in part 13, the illusory truth effect. Repeat a lie often enough and it becomes the truth. Yet in brainwashing, the repetition is strengthened by isolation, by exhaustion, by emotional vulnerability. Slowly, new beliefs replace old ones. The person begins to accept that the manipulator is right, that they are wrong, that they are worthless, that they have no one else, that the outside world is dangerous, that survival depends on the very person who is breaking them. Pause for a moment and let this settle. Brainwashing is not the process of making someone believe something new. It is the process of making them forget who they were. When memory is blurred, when emotion is distorted, when truth is replaced by narrative, a person is no longer free. They become a programmed version of themselves. They speak words they do not truly believe. They react as though they have no inner life of their own. They fear things they never feared before. They accept what their former self would have rejected. They move through life as though performing someone else's script. George Orwell wrote in 1984, "Who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past." Brainwashing operates through this very principle. Once someone controls your memory of the past, they control your interpretation of the present. And once they control the present, they hold the key to your future. But tonight, as you listen in a quiet, deepening breath, you may begin to sense that brainwashing is not only a phenomenon of cults, extremist groups, or psychological warfare. It happens in the smallest, closest corners of daily life. It happens in relationships where someone repeatedly tells you that you're not good enough. It happens when a person is so exhausted and afraid that they lose sight of their inherent worth. It happens when emotional dependence becomes a cage so subtle that the person forgets they ever had wings. It happens in the quiet forms of control disguised as protection. Don't talk to them, they're not good for you. Don't trust anyone else, only I understand you. The world is dangerous, stay here with me. These are not words of love. They are the beginnings of a prison. And yet, there is something no manipulator can ever take from you, no matter how they distort your emotions, rewrite your memory, or reshape your beliefs. The ancient instinct of the soul, the one that knows you are not born to be controlled, not born to be confined, not born to be programmed by fear or dependence. You were born to walk your own path. And the most beautiful truth of all is this: no manipulator, however powerful, can extinguish that inner flame. Small, but unbreakable. Soft, but real. Jung once wrote in The Undiscovered Self, "The sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. That light may be dimmed by the crushing weight of brainwashing, but it cannot be erased. It remains, waiting for you to reach toward it. And in the moment you begin to question the control, the moment you breathe with awareness, the moment you sense that you deserve more than fear, the flame begins to rise again. Brainwashing separates a person from reality. But recognizing it, understanding it, naming it, that is the first step back to yourself. And as the light within you slowly kindles like a small flame in the depths of night, another question unfolds gently, like a soft doorway leading to the next layer of the human psyche. If brainwashing binds through fear, what happens when the binding begins with love? What happens when control doesn't start with isolation, but with overwhelming warmth, affection, and sweetness, so gentle, so abundant, that you don't notice you are walking straight into a web? That question leads you into part 18, love bombing, where tenderness becomes the spark that ignites an entire cycle of manipulation. Let your breath soften like evening light, and together we continue deeper into the night. And as the reflections from part 17 continue drifting quietly through you like a thin mist after a storm, when you have just walked through the shadowed corridors of brainwashing, where a person can lose themselves through isolation, exhaustion, and the slow, deliberate reshaping of their inner world, another kind of darkness begins to appear in the night, subtler, sweeter, easier to mistake for something good, like a warm song echoing in a dim room with a hidden blade beneath each note. Because if brainwashing breaks someone through fear, love bombing opens the heart through affection. If brainwashing begins with isolation, love bombing begins with overwhelming attention. If brainwashing begins by tearing a person down, love bombing begins by lifting them so high they forget how the ground feels. And from this beautiful yet dangerous contrast, we enter the world of love bombing, the art of manipulation through excessive affection, where tenderness becomes a trap, attention becomes a chain, and sweetness is only the overture to a cycle of emotional imbalance. Imagine standing in a cold night and someone suddenly draping a warm coat over your shoulder. They make you feel seen, cherished, chosen. They send you hundreds of messages a day, telling you are special, that they've never met anyone like you, that you are the one they've been waiting for their entire life. They make you believe your presence makes their world brighter. And in that moment, you open your heart. Not because you are weak, but because humans are wired to respond to warmth, connection, and safety. But love bombing never stops at love. It stops at too much. Too many compliments, too much attention, too much closeness, too much presence. The affection doesn't come like a natural stream. It comes like a flood that sweeps you away before you can find your footing. You don't have time to observe. No pauses to think. No chance to hear your own intuition. Everything moves too fast, and before you realize it, you've become emotionally dependent. Dependent on their rhythm. Dependent on the light they shine on you. Dependent on the attention that makes you feel valuable. Nietzsche once wrote in Beyond Good and Evil, "Love is the state in which man sees things most decidedly as they are not. Love naturally beautifies reality. But love bombing doesn't merely beautify it. It paints the reality for you, crafting a world where you and they are everything, where their attention becomes the only source of validation and other connections slowly fade into insignificance. Then one day, unexpectedly, without explanation, they withdraw. The messages stop. The warmth dissolves. They disappear for hours, then days. Suddenly, you feel lost, suspended in the empty spaces they created. You ask yourself, what did I do wrong? Why did they change? How do I win back the love I had? And then they return, but only a little. A soft message, a half-hearted compliment, a short burst of affection just when you're on the verge of giving up. A single drop of sweetness on a desert they themselves created. And you go back, not because they deserve you, but because your heart has grown addicted to the intense contrasts they engineered. Love bombing is a cycle of overwhelming highs and abrupt withdrawals. It creates emotional addiction. Psychologist Lenore Walker calls this trauma bonding, when love and pain intertwine so tightly that the rare moments of tenderness become addictive. A small compliment after coldness feels like salvation. A brief hug after days of silence feels like hope. A fleeting smile feels like evidence that everything is okay again. And you cling, not to love, but to the hope of returning to the beginning. But the beginning was never real. It was bait. The most dangerous prisons are the ones we don't see. Anonymous love bombing is a prison made of petals, no bars, no locks, just warmth, weaponized. But here, in the quiet safety of the night, with your breath softening like calm water, there is something essential you must remember. If love bombing traps you through attention, the way out is not running from attention, it is reclaiming your attention for yourself. Love bombing convinces you that love must come from outside, but real love begins within. And when you return to yourself, your heartbeat, your breath, your inherent worth, you will see that excessive sweetness is no longer something that can manipulate you. You don't need artificial storms just to taste peace. You don't need rehearsed compliments to feel enough. You don't need someone who creates chaos only to offer themselves as the cure. You can be your own calm. And as this awareness gently expands inside you like moonlight spreading across still water, another question rises, quiet but persistent. If love bombing binds through overwhelming affection, what happens when that bond is reinforced through guilt? What happens when someone manipulates you not with sweetness, but by making you believe everything is your fault? This question leads you into part 19, guilt tripping, where guilt becomes the invisible rope that tightens around the mind, pulling you away from your own emotional freedom. Let your breath fall slow and warm, and we will continue deeper into the night together. As the sweet yet poisonous echoes of Part 18 continue to drift through you like the final fading scent of a flower about to wither, when you have just touched the fragile essence of love bombing, where affection can turn into chains and tenderness can become a silent storm pulling you into a loop of emotional dependency. A new door slowly opens in the night, so softly that you sense it only through a faint tremor deep within. What happens when control no longer arrives through overwhelming love, but through guilt? What happens when someone no longer sways you with sweetness, but makes you blame yourself for things you did not cause? This is where guilt tripping appears, a form of manipulation that does not shatter the heart like gaslighting, nor sweep you away like love bombing, but binds you with an invisible thread, so soft you cannot see it, yet tightening every time you try to step beyond the boundaries set by the one who plants the guilt. Guilt tripping is the art of making you feel guilty for being yourself, guilty for expressing your true feelings, guilty for setting boundaries, guilty even for simply existing. Imagine telling someone you are tired and need time for yourself, and instead of understanding, they whisper something delicate yet piercing. "Oh, so I'm not as important as your feelings anymore? Or I never thought you would treat me like this, or worse. If you do that, I'll be really disappointed." No shouting, no obvious blame, only the subtle shift that places you in the role of the wrongdoer, even though you know, deep within, you have done nothing wrong. This is guilt tripping, when someone does not want to change, so they make you change by stirring guilt inside you. It strikes the softest place in human nature, our longing to be loved, accepted, and safe within relationships. And because everyone longs for that, we sacrifice ourselves to maintain harmony. We stay silent, we accommodate, we apologize. We suppress our needs, we live in obligation instead of freedom. Worst of all, we believe that if someone is unhappy, it must be our fault. But that is not the truth. As Carl Jung wrote in Psychological Reflections, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Self-acceptance is frightening, and those who use guilt as a weapon know this well. They know your tenderness, they know your compassion, they know your fear of disappointing others, and they turn your goodness into a tool of control. Recall a moment in your life when someone made you feel guilty for setting a healthy boundary, when doing the right thing for yourself was labeled selfish, when you were blamed for not meeting expectations that were never fair, when you did hundreds of kind things but were judged for the one time you were tired. That sinking feeling, that heavy, collapsing sensation, is exactly what guilt tripping cultivates. It makes you shrink. It makes you fear your own needs. It convinces you that protecting your emotional space is an act of betrayal. And slowly, you become a smaller version of yourself, smaller and smaller, until the vastness of your inner world begins to dim. Guilt tripping is not about care, it is about power. Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote in On the Genealogy of Morality, "Guilt is the debt of the weak to the strong." But in guilt tripping, the paradox reverses. The so-called weak is often the kind one, and the strong is simply the one who knows how to use kindness against you. The cruelty lies not in the guilt itself, but in the way it turns you against your own inner truth. If gaslighting makes you doubt your perception, and love bombing makes you addicted to attention, then guilt tripping makes you doubt your moral worth. It distorts responsibility, making you carry burdens that do not belong to you. The deepest wound is not guilt, but loneliness, the loneliness of being unable to speak your truth because you fear being labeled selfish. But here, in this quiet night, as your breath softens and settles like a still lake, there is something you must know. Those who truly love you will never use guilt to control you. Those who love you will state their needs clearly, instead of making you feel ashamed. Those who love you will respect your boundaries instead of treating them as betrayal. Those who love you will encourage you to live authentically instead of silencing your inner voice. They will not make you small so they can feel big. And if you place your hand gently over your heart right now, you will hear a whisper rising from deep within. You're not wrong for needing space. You're not wrong for setting boundaries. You're not wrong for being unable to please everyone. You're not wrong for wanting respect. You're not wrong for needing peace. As soon as this truth settles within you, that you're not required to carry guilt that does not belong to you, a new question quietly stirs in the depth of your mind. If guilt tripping can disconnect us from ourselves through guilt, what happens when manipulation expands beyond feelings and enters the realm of perception, shaping not only what we feel, but what we believe reality to be? This question leads us into Part 20, Plato's allegory of the cave, where truth and illusion blur into one, and humans often remain in darkness without knowing until the light finds them. And with your breath stretching softly into the dark, we continue walking deeper into the night together. And as the delicate threads of guilt from Part 19 still linger in you like the final echo of a midnight rain, when you have just witnessed how guilt-tripping can make a person shrink, fold inward, and lose the truth of who they are, simply because they fear hurting someone else, a deeper, older, grander question begins to open within you, like the heavy stone door of an ancient cave long forgotten. If we can be guided by guilt, by manipulation, by fear, by what others want us to believe, then is this entire life, everything we see, think, and believe, truly real? Or are we merely living inside soft shadows of something deeper we have never touched? And from that question, rising quietly with your breath in the dark, the image of Plato's allegory of the cave appears, not as a dry philosophical tale, but as a mirror reflecting the human journey of awakening, where we think we live in light, but truly only see shimmering silhouettes on a stone wall. Imagine sitting in a dark cave, your hands bound, your feet fixed, your neck held in place facing forward. In front of you is a cold gray wall. Behind you, somewhere in the blackness, burns a fire. Whenever someone walks between you and that fire, their shadow stretches and trembles across the wall before you. And since birth, these shadows are all you have ever known. You have never turned your head. You have never seen the fire. You have never stepped outside the cave. These shadows are your world. You believe they are real. You believe they are everything. You believe they reflect the true nature of things, but they do not. What you see is only reflection, distortion, the outer shell of reality. Plato used this image to show how humans often live in illusions shaped by society, beliefs, culture, habit, fear, and the things repeated long enough that we take them as truth. He wrote in the Republic, "How could they see anything but the shadows if they were never allowed to move their heads?" And as you sit in this quiet night, you may realize we all have our shadows. The things we believe about ourselves, the things we believe about others, the things we believe about life. All may be shadows, not essence, not truth, not light. Plato asked whether we have the courage to leave the cave, knowing the journey is painful. Imagine breaking your chains, standing and turning around for the first time. The fire burns your eyes. What you see clashes with everything you believed. Confusion rises. Fear rises. You step outside the cave. Sunlight blinds you so sharply, you want to retreat into the comfort of darkness. Plato said that humans resist truth not because they are bad, but because truth hurts the eyes. When he approaches the light, his eyes will be dazzled. But if you stay long enough, if your eyes adjust, a new world emerges. Clearer, richer, alive. And then you understand, what you once believed was truth was only shadow. Life is the same. Each of us lives in our own cave. Some live in shadows cast by fear. Some in shadows shaped by family, expectations, memories. Some live in the shadow of a toxic love mistaken for destiny. Some in the shadow of cultural ideas they have never questioned. Some in the shadow of an old version of themselves that never received light. One of the greatest shadows is the image of who we think we must become. As children, we believed what adults told us. As adults, we believed what society demanded. When wounded, we believed what our pain whispered. When tired, we believed what our fear repeated. But all those may be shadows, not who we are, not the truth within us, not the real light. So breathe slowly, deeply, because Plato's whisper through this story is gentle yet profound. Freedom does not come from running faster or fighting harder. It comes from seeing the darkness you live in, recognizing that it is only darkness and daring to step beyond it, stepping out of others' shadows, stepping out of your past, stepping out of fear, stepping out of stories that no longer fit you. But leaving the cave brings sorrow, for when you try to return with truth, Plato wrote in the Republic, they would laugh at him and say he had gone up only to come back with his sight ruined. Those who remain in the cave will not believe you. They will think you are strange. They will say you are wrong. For them, shadow is the world, and those who choose light always appear unusual to those who still sit in darkness. But this does not make the light less true, nor the shadows less false. Reality remains reality even when no one believes it, and illusion remains illusion even when everyone worships it. Tonight, in this stillness, Plato invites you to look at your own cave. What shadow are you living in? What have you believed simply because it felt familiar? And do you dare take one more step toward the light, even if it hurts, even if it blinds, even if it forces you to see parts of yourself you once hid? And if you reach the light, can you be gentle with yourself, not blaming yourself for having stayed in the cave so long? Because the truth is, we all begin in shadow. The journey to the light is never late. And as your breath softens like a thin stream flowing over smooth stones, you may feel the next question rising, opening another layer of philosophy, where truth is not only hidden by darkness, but tangled in the contradictions within our own thinking. A question leading us into part 21, Socratic questioning, where truth is not found in answers, but in the courage to ask the right questions. If you're ready, we will continue walking deeper into the night together. And as the lingering echoes of part 20 continue to hum softly within you like the distant resonance of a cave newly touched by light, when you have just seen how a person can live an entire lifetime inside shadows without realizing they are shadows, when you have felt both the pain of stepping into the light and the loneliness of the one who sees truth before those who remain in darkness, another question rises gently, like the quiet breath of the night itself. If we live in darkness without knowing it is darkness, is there a path that helps us see the light? If truth remains hidden, not because it is far away, but because we have never asked the right questions, is there a method that allows the human mind to lift the veil from its own eyes? And at the intersection of doubt and longing, the figure of Socrates appears like a small lantern held by a traveler walking through the deep night, a man who gives no answers but dissolves illusions with questions that are sharp yet tender, unwavering yet humble, direct yet quiet. Let your breath slow, as soft as the fading light at day's end, for this journey will not lead you to any final answers. It will only lead you to the right questions, and sometimes the act of asking is all it takes for the world to begin changing. Socrates once said in apology, "I know that I know nothing." This was not ordinary humility. It was the foundation of Socratic questioning. Only when we realize we do not know do we begin to ask. And only when we ask do we begin to see the cracks in the things we once believed were unquestionably true. Imagine Socrates standing before someone who claims to understand everything: justice, virtue, love, truth, human nature. And instead of arguing or rejecting, he simply asks. One question, then another, then another. Slowly, the layers of false certainty fall away, revealing an emptiness the person never knew they carried. This method, which Socrates called elenchus, is the art of deep questioning, not to win, but to illuminate. He asks not to defeat the other, but to help them see themselves more truthfully, as if holding a mirror to the soul so it can no longer hide behind its own illusions. And this is also the way out of the cave, not by dragging anyone into the light, but by guiding them to ask, "Is what I'm seeing truly real?" Let your mind recall the beliefs you once treated as unshakable. I am not good enough. Others are better than me. Life must be this way. I was born to suffer. I'm unworthy of love. If Socrates were here, he would not deny those beliefs. He would simply ask, "Why do you think that? Where did this belief come from? Is there real evidence for it, or did someone else tell you so? If you looked with your own eyes, would you still believe it?" And as you try to answer, you begin to see. Many of your wounds come not from truth, but from stories you never questioned. For Socrates, the question is not merely a philosophical tool, it is a doorway into the light. He believed people are misled not by ignorance, but by the illusion of knowledge. Nietzsche once wrote, "Convictions are more dangerous enemies of truth than lies. Fixed beliefs can be more dangerous than falsehoods." Socratic questioning dissolves that danger. By asking why, Socrates frees the mind from the cave it has built out of unexamined beliefs. And when we use Socratic questions in our own lives, something miraculous happens. We stop accepting everything by instinct. We begin stepping slowly, seeing deeper and asking, where does the truth really lie? Imagine you are heartbroken by someone's actions. Socrates would ask, what truly hurts you, their action or your expectation? You feel disappointed by your own path. Socrates would ask, did you choose it from the heart or from fear? You feel stuck in life. Socrates would ask, what is stuck, the world or the way you are looking at it? Every question opens a crack. Every crack lets a little light in. And like the prisoner in the cave, once the light touches you even for a moment, your perception begins to shift. But Socratic questioning is not only about breaking illusions. It is also a journey of healing. For when you are brave enough to ask, you are gentle enough to listen to yourself. You no longer seek quick answers. You no longer need to prove you are right. You simply want clarity. You want honesty with your own soul. And that honesty is the foundation of inner freedom. Socrates never called himself a teacher. He said he was a gadfly, stirring minds that had fallen asleep. But the sting he offered was a quiet awakening. And in this night, as your mind softens, you may feel this truth. Sometimes, a single soft question can redirect the whole course of a life. Try asking yourself, what am I truly afraid of? What do I truly want? Which beliefs do I carry only because others told me to? If no expectations weighed on me, how would I live? If I were not afraid of the light, where would I go? Like Socrates' voice echoing through an ancient Athenian square, each of these questions awakens something deep within you, the part of you that wants to be real, to be free, to understand, to step beyond your own shadows. When you dare to ask, you dare to see. When you dare to see, you dare to move. And when you dare to move, no cave can hold you anymore. You become the guide of your own path. And as this inner light slowly rises in you like a small lantern in the night, another question emerges, gentle yet weighty. If Socratic questioning helps us break illusions, what happens when the very truths we trust contain paradoxes of their own? Moments where what we say is not logically false, but quietly contradicts our inner reality. That question leads us into part 22, Aristotle's Four Causes, where the world unfolds through deeper layers of purpose and structure, moving slowly and harmoniously like the silent machinery of the universe. Let your breath fall softly, and together we will continue deeper into the night. And as the echo of part 21 continues to resonate gently within your mind, like the lingering hum of a question that has just reached the deepest chamber of your inner world when you have just walked through the pathway of Socratic questioning, where answers are not destinations but mirrors, reflecting the soft truth inside you, where each question opens a small slit of light guiding you out of your own darkness. Another stream of thought begins to drift in, slowly, like the night breeze brushing through a row of leaves. If questions help us pierce illusion, what helps us understand the world in a structured, logical, essential way? If Socrates teaches us how to dissolve the fog of assumptions, who teaches us how to arrange what remains once the fog has lifted? And in that primal intersection, the figure of Aristotle emerges like the gardener of knowledge, a calm, deliberate mind picking up fragments of the world and placing each one gently in its rightful place. Let your breath soften and settle deeply, for Aristotle does not lead us into a labyrinth, but leads us out of one through the clarity of his thinking and the quiet order of nature. In the Four Causes, Aristotle says that to understand anything in this universe, be it a stone, a tree, a house, or a human being, we must understand four foundational aspects of it: the material cause, the formal cause, the efficient cause, and the final cause. He writes in Metaphysics, "We do not have knowledge of a thing until we have grasped its why. We do not truly know something until we understand why it exists." And from that single why, Aristotle unfolds one of the earliest frameworks for comprehending the world as a complete, interconnected whole. Imagine you are holding a clay pot in your hands. To Aristotle, truly understanding the pot requires four different ways of seeing. First is the material cause. What is it made of? Clay, water, fire. These are the elements from which it emerges. In life, this mirrors understanding what you are made of, your memories, your wounds, your joys, your experiences. Who were you before you became the you that lives today? Next is the formal cause. What makes the pot a pot and not a stone? Its shape, its structure, its proportions, its curves. This is the soul of the object. In life, the formal cause resembles your inner essence, your temperament, your intuition, your deepest self. It explains why two people can live through similar events yet become two very different souls. Then comes the efficient cause. Who shaped the pot? The potter. Which forces brought it into existence? The hands, the intention, the craft. In life, this is everything and everyone that has shaped you, your parents, teachers, heartbreaks, victories, failures, accidents, coincidences. These are the hands that molded you, gently or harshly. Finally comes the final cause. Why does the pot exist? To hold water, to decorate a home, to preserve a story of craftsmanship from a particular land. This is the deepest cause, the ultimate why behind every being. In life, this is your purpose, your telos, a silent direction your soul always moves toward even when you cannot name it. Aristotle believed that without this last cause, we cannot understand anything fully. He called it telos, the inner purpose. And tonight, as your mind flows slowly like a clear midnight stream, you may ask yourself, what is your telos? Why do you exist? Where are your wounds trying to lead you? What are you meant to bring into this world? But Aristotle does not hurry you toward an answer. He only wants you to see that life is not as chaotic as it sometimes feels. Everything has a cause, a structure, a nature, a force acting upon it, a purpose pulling it forward. Think of a moment of heartbreak you have endured. Perhaps at the time it felt meaningless. But through Aristotle's eyes, the material cause is the raw emotion, sorrow, confusion, longing. The formal cause is the story that moment wears, loss, separation, disappointment. The efficient cause may be someone who hurt you or a circumstance that unraveled your world. But the final cause, the deeper purpose, might have been to make you stronger, or to show you a truth you needed, or to break a cycle that would have enslaved you, or simply to teach you how to love yourself more fiercely. Life is not always easy to interpret, but it is never without cause. And when you look at the world through these four causes, you begin to see that everything is woven together like threads in a vast cosmic tapestry. A falling leaf moves not only because of the wind, the efficient cause, but because of its shape, formal cause, its fragile material, material cause, and its role in the life cycle of trees and seasons, final cause. A tear slips down your face not just because of pain, but because of your history, your nature, something that touched you in the present, and something your future self may need to understand. Aristotle sees the world as a poem with structure, each word placed exactly where it must be. And tonight, he invites you to see your life in that same way. Not rushed, not judged, just observed with quiet clarity. What are you made of? What is your inner form? What has shaped you? And where are you being called to go? And the most beautiful truth is this. Aristotle believed final cause is never something imposed from the outside. Each soul carries its own purpose, like a seed carrying the design of the tree it will someday become. Sometimes you must return to the stillness within you to hear it whisper. When you let your breath fall softly, you hear it better. When you release the noise, you see it more clearly. When you stop running, your telos steps forward to meet you. And as that awareness spreads softly through you like moonlight dissolving into the surface of a quiet lake, another question rises gently. If Aristotle gives us a structure to understand the world, what happens when that structure collapses under a paradox within the mind itself, when a person can speak a statement that is logically sound yet inwardly contradictory to what they believe? That is the doorway into part 23, Moore's paradox, where belief and assertion drift apart and the very nature of truth becomes more mysterious than ever. Let your breath slow, and we will continue deeper into the night. And as the lingering resonance of part 22 continues to drift softly through your mind, like the universe whispering its four causes into the quiet spaces of your awareness, when you have just felt the deep structure behind all things, from their essence and form to their movers and their purposes, as if the world is no longer chaotic but a tapestry woven carefully with intention, another question begins to rise, delicate and small, like a faint spark in the darkness. What happens when the very structure of thought itself contains a fracture? When the world can be understood through reasons and purposes, yet the human mind sometimes moves in ways that slip beyond logic. It is at this fragile border, this thin thread between what we know and what we believe, between perception and emotion, between reason and the most secret contradictions of the heart, that Moore's paradox appears. Soft but sharp, subtle yet profound, like a sentence that makes you stop mid-breath, slow down, and ask, how can someone say I know this, but I don't believe it, and still not be logically wrong? Let your breath slow, for Moore's paradox is not a paradox of the world, it is a paradox of the human heart, where a person may know something with the mind, yet be unable to accept it with belief. In some main problems of philosophy, G.E. Moore pointed out the strangeness of a sentence like, "It is raining, but I don't believe that it is raining." Logic finds nothing inconsistent here. The statement and the personal belief belong to two separate systems. And yet the mind feels an unease, because how can someone know a thing and simultaneously not believe it? But sitting here in the quiet of the night, you may realize that this paradox is not foreign at all. It lives inside your own life. Think of moments when you knew a person no longer loved you, but you did not believe it. You knew a relationship had ended, but you did not believe it. You knew you deserved more than the way you were treated, but you did not believe it. You knew you were capable of starting again, but you did not believe it. You knew the past was gone, but you did not believe it. You knew you should let go, but you did not believe it. In those moments, Moore's paradox is not an abstract philosophical idea. It is the breath of a living human contradiction. You're not wrong. You are simply human. Humans are strange creatures. We can know truth with the mind, while belief dwells in a much deeper region, where memory, wounds, emotion, and identity blend into something that cannot be translated directly into logic. Aristotle teaches us that everything has causes and purposes, but Moore shows us that human belief does not obey that structure. Belief can lag behind truth. Sometimes it never arrives. In those moments, your inner world becomes two rivers flowing side by side without merging. One carries what you know, the other carries what you feel. And often, that very distance between them is where suffering is born. Imagine standing in the rain. Cold water falls on your hair, your skin, your clothes. Everything confirms that it is raining. Yet your heart, for some reason, does not believe it. It is busy believing something else. Perhaps you are waiting for someone to return, and your heart refuses to accept the truth that they will not come. Sometimes belief is not something we choose. It is something we cling to in order to avoid a truth our soul is not yet ready to face. Dostoevsky wrote in Notes from Underground, "Man is sometimes extraordinarily, passionately in love with suffering. Perhaps that is why there are truths we know but do not believe, because believing them would require us to lay down a pain we have carried for so long. It feels like home." Belief is not light. Belief is a habit of the soul, and the soul often clings to the old even when the mind has already seen the new. Consider someone in the midst of healing. They know they must let go of someone. They know they must forgive. They know they must walk away from what harms them, but they do not believe they are strong enough. Moore's paradox is the voice of that delay between understanding and transformation, a quiet no rising from the heart, while the mind has already said yes. But that distance is not failure. It is process. It is journey. It is the path every soul must travel to slowly align what it knows and what it believes. No one changes just because they understand. Understanding is the beginning. Believing is the destination. And between the two lies a soft gray region where a person is both awakened and lost. Yet it is precisely in that grayness that healing begins. Let your mind soften and ask gently, What is something you know but do not yet believe? That you deserve love. That you are no longer who you once were. That you have grown. That you are not as alone as you think. That you are stronger than you imagine. That the past no longer holds the power you once gave it. I know, but I don't believe. Perhaps this is the quiet cry of a heart needing time to catch up with the mind. And there is no wrongness in that. It is deeply, beautifully human. Moore's paradox reminds us that awareness and emotion do not move at the same speed. And in this quiet night, as your breath drops lower, heavier, softer, perhaps you can feel what Moore wanted to reveal. Truth does not fully live in answers. It lives in the slow, gentle journey of learning how to believe in those answers. And as you hold that truth with tenderness, another question rises from the silence behind you. If humans can know something, yet not believe it, what happens when law, logic, and argument themselves lead to a paradox from which no one can escape? When winning and losing blur, and reason twists into a circle with no exit? That question opens the door to part 24, the paradox of the court, where logic meets the limits of its own power. Let your breath drift softly downward, and together we will step deeper into the night. And as the lingering resonance of part 23 continues to flow through you like the low hum of the mind's deeper breath, when you have just walked through Moore's quiet paradox, where a person may say, "I know this, but I do not believe it," where reason and belief drift apart like two rivers running side by side without ever merging, where truth may stand clearly before you. Yet the heart has not opened its door to receive it. A new vibration begins to ripple softly through your awareness, as though another question is touching the surface of your thoughts. If the human mind can contradict itself, what happens when the very systems designed to be governed by reason, law, argument, logic, fairness, begin to twist upon themselves and form a loop with no escape? What happens when winning is losing, and losing is winning, when every possible conclusion cancels itself out? And in that suspended moment, like an ancient tale awakening under dim light, the paradox of the court enters, not as a dry legal puzzle, but as a mirror reflecting the tragic humor of human reasoning. Let your breath slow a little further, for this paradox does not only touch the intellect, it touches the fragility of our faith in the rationality of the world. The story begins with Protagoras, a famed Greek sophist, master of argument and rhetoric. He took on a young student named Euathlus, agreeing to teach him the art of persuasion with the condition that Euthlus would pay only after he won his first case in court. But once he completed his studies, Euthlus simply avoided going to court. He postponed, he delayed, he sidestepped until Protagoras himself decided to sue him to claim the payment. And that is where the spiral begins. In court, Protagoras argued calmly, "If I win this case, Euthlus must pay because the court orders it. If I lose, he must still pay because he will have won his first case, and our agreement states that winning his first case obligates him to pay the fee. Therefore, whether I win or lose, I win." Euathlus, however, was just as sharp. He answered, "If Protagoras loses, I do not have to pay because the court will say so. If he wins, I still do not have to pay because I will not have won my first case, so the condition of payment has not been fulfilled. Therefore, whether I win or lose, I win." And in that instant, reason bends back on itself. Both are right, both are wrong. No answer leads to an answer. No conclusion leads to a conclusion. Logic devours itself. Like the Ouroboros snake consuming its own tail, the paradox turns every result into a contradiction. And what does this reflect? that humans often trust reason as if it were an absolute guiding light, yet reason carries its own limits. Sometimes it becomes a maze. Sometimes it transforms rationality into an endless loop. Sometimes logic does not lead us to truth, but to the very edge where all explanations crumble. Wittgenstein once wrote in Philosophical Investigations, "A contradiction is not a disaster in logic, it is a mirror." And the paradox of the court is such a mirror. It reflects something deeply human, that sometimes in life, winning and losing are illusions. What matters is not who triumphs, but whether the real essence of the situation is understood. Think of moments when you argued endlessly with someone, each convinced of their own correctness. Yet the more you tried to prove your point, the further you drifted from what truly mattered. Some arguments you win and still lose because you lose your peace, your connection, your center. Some arguments you lose and yet win because you grow, you learn, you see from a new angle. The paradox reminds us that life is not always divided neatly between victory and defeat. Often, what we need is not to be right, but to perceive the truth, and truth does not always reside in the final conclusion. Sometimes it lives inside the contradiction. But there is a deeper layer still. The paradox of the court shows that humans often try to control outcomes with logic, with argument, with patterns they believe to be airtight. Yet life is not bound to human logic. It follows its own, wider, murkier, sometimes harsher. You may do everything right and still get the wrong outcome. You may argue flawlessly and still be misunderstood. You may love deeply and not be loved back. You may give your all and not be recognized. You may plan carefully and still watch life drift elsewhere. Not because you are lacking, not because you are foolish, but because life has twists logic cannot reach. When you understand this, you begin to soften. You no longer exhaust yourself trying to win every debate. You no longer feel the need to prove yourself in every situation. You no longer cling desperately to a perfect outcome. You breathe easier. You live gentler. You start to see that sometimes the only thing you can do is take a step in awareness and surrender the rest to forces larger than you. Nietzsche wrote in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, "One must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star. There are moments when life is contradictory, tangled, paradoxical, and yet from that chaos, stars are born." And when you look at the paradox of the court with calmer eyes, you see that it is not a failure of reason, but a whisper of humility. We do not always know. Our logic does not always save us. Our arguments do not always guide us to clarity. But this does not make the world meaningless. It simply makes our journey softer, more open, more human. And as that softness begins to spread through you like the quiet glow of a candle in the dark, another door opens gently before you. If the paradox of the court shows that reason can twist itself into impossible knots, what happens when paradox does not merely arise from argument, but from the very nature of experience, when cause seems to lie in the future and the effect in the past? That is the question whispering from beyond the darkness, leading you toward Part 25, The Hard Problem of Consciousness, where we step into the deepest paradox of the human mind. Let your breath fall softly, and we will continue our descent into the night together. And as the echoes of Part 24 continue to drift softly through your mind like the distant reverberation of a courtroom where reason has twisted upon itself, when you have just walked through the paradox of the court, where winning and losing dissolve into one another like two shadows blending into a single indistinct blur, when you have just realized that even the logical systems humans construct contain fractures, loops with no exits, moments when the very intellect we rely on stands helpless before its own contradictions. A deeper question, older and more mysterious, begins rising from the darkness like the low hum of a cosmic melody. If logic can contradict itself, if law can bend until it breaks, if reason can deceive its own foundations, then what happens when the mind, the very thing observing all of this, becomes the unanswerable question? And in that moment, as your breath grows longer and warmer, as your awareness sinks into the widest expanse of the night, the hard problem of consciousness appears not as a chapter in a philosophy book, but as the eternal question the universe itself seems to whisper into the human ear. Why do we feel? Why does the brain, a mass of meat, electricity, and chemicals, not simply process information but experience it? Why, when light touches the eye, do we not merely register red but feel red? Why, when music arises, do we not merely detect vibrations but tremble with them? Why, when the heart breaks, do we not simply note the event but ache? Let your breath slow like mist settling on a still lake, because this is no longer a question about the world. It is a question about you, about the life-breathing, feeling, dreaming within you. The phrase hard problem was named by philosopher David Chalmers, who wrote in The Conscious Mind, "There is nothing that we know more intimately than conscious experience, but nothing that is harder to explain. For we know nothing more clearly than our own feelings, yet nothing is more mysterious than why we have them. We can explain how the brain functions, electrical currents across synapses, chemicals passing signals, neurons firing when we see, hear, touch. But none of that explains qualia, the inner quality of experience. Why does red have its redness? Why does the scent of flowers soften us? Why does sadness have a deep blue tone? Why does love make us tremble with both fear and longing? Why does emotional pain, which has no physical location, still make the entire body shiver? No equation explains the emotion of experience. No scientific model explains the feeling of being alive. And that is the hard problem, not because science is weak, but because the question escapes measurement. It touches the essence of existence. Imagine you are looking at the night sky. Starlight travels through the retina, becomes electrical pulses, travels to visual centers. We can describe every step in scientific terms, but the feeling you experience, your chest expanding, your breath lengthening, your awareness dissolving gently into that vastness, does not appear in any electrical signal. It lives in a region science has not yet named. Think of a piece of music that makes you cry. The sound can be measured in frequency, but the sadness cannot. Think of the scent of the ocean. Salt particles can be analyzed, but the feeling of home, nostalgia, bittersweet comfort, that cannot be measured. The hard problem does not ask, how does the brain process information? It asks, why does information become experience? Why are we not machines? Why do we know we are alive? Why do we know we are I? Descartes once said, "Cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am." But Chalmers seems to whisper the opposite. I feel, therefore I am human. And strangely, the more we try to explain consciousness, the more it slips from our fingers like sand sliding through an open hand. For consciousness is not merely a byproduct of the brain. It is the lived sense of existence. Philosopher Thomas Nagel asked in What Is It Like to Be a Bat? What makes being a bat fundamentally different from observing a bat? We can know everything about sonar, wings, anatomy, but never the subjective experience of batness. Humans are the same. We live beside each other, see each other, interpret each other, but no one can enter the consciousness of another. Your feelings, your sorrows, your memories, your trembling, No one but you has ever walked through them. Consciousness is solitary, and because it is solitary, it is beautiful. And tonight, as you listen to these words soft as breath, you may feel something essential. Consciousness is not a philosophical problem. It is the most ordinary miracle we forget. The miracle is that you can feel the wind. The miracle is that you know when you are sad. The miracle is that you can hear your own heartbeat. The miracle is that you are alive. The hard problem also opens another question. If consciousness cannot be measured, what is its true nature? Some believe consciousness is produced by matter. Others believe consciousness is fundamental, and matter is the illusion, its shadow. Philosopher Alan Watts once said, "You are an aperture through which the universe is looking at itself." Perhaps consciousness is not inside the brain. Perhaps the brain is the window through which the universe experiences itself as you. And you, listening to these words, become a point of light in that flowing infinity. Yet among all these grand questions, the hard problem whispers something deeply human. Sometimes you hurt without knowing why. Sometimes you feel small in the presence of a moment. Sometimes you love without understanding. Sometimes your heart shakes because of a single glance. Sometimes you cry over a memory you thought you buried. Sometimes you want to hold yourself gently. These are not flaws. These are signs that consciousness is alive, touching the world in ways no theory can capture. And that is what makes you beautiful. The hard problem does not give answers, but it gives something softer: gratitude. Gratitude for the ability to feel the world from within. Gratitude that each breath is a tiny miracle. Gratitude that each trembling proves you are alive. And as the quiet of this night wraps itself around you, as your awareness spreads like a thin ribbon of smoke dissolving into darkness, another question opens softly. If consciousness is the deepest mystery of the human mind, then what happens when the self we attach to that consciousness, our identity, turns out not to be as real as we think? That is the doorway leading to part 26, the illusion of self, where the idea of I becomes not a certainty, but a question trembling in the vastness of existence. Let your breath flow slowly, like moonlight gliding across the water, and we will continue our descent into the night together. And as the reflections from part 25 still linger within you like a thin cloud suspended in the night sky, when you have just passed through the deepest paradox of consciousness, where science can trace every firing neuron, yet still cannot touch the trembling sensation of being alive inside you, where you realize there is something within you softer than thought, quieter than logic, deeper than any explanation. Another question emerges, light as a breath from a soul seeking itself, spreading outward like ripples moving across still water. If consciousness itself is an unsolved mystery, what happens when the very self we attach to that consciousness is also not real? If the part we believe to be the center of everything, the ego, the self, the identity, is nothing more than a story the brain creates to make you feel continuous, unified, shaped. And from this fragile intersection, the illusion of self appears like a dim mirror, not reflecting your face, but reflecting the question you have carried your entire life without knowing how to name it. Who am I? Let your breath soften, light as mist. Let your mind open like a still lake. For this journey will not take you toward an answer, but toward the dissolving of the question itself. Imagine that inside your mind, there is a silent storyteller, one who stitches together the fragmented pieces of experience every second into a seamless narrative. Who you were yesterday, who you are today, who you will be tomorrow. It weaves all of it into the story of me. But the strange truth is, as neuroscientist Anil Seth once said, the self is a controlled hallucination, one the brain creates to make sense of its sensory world. The self is an illusion the brain manages so you do not become lost in the chaos of scattered moments. You think you are a continuous stream, but in truth, you are countless small versions of yourself, shifting from moment to moment throughout the day. There is no fixed you. There is only the flow of experience, and the brain gathers that flow, places a label on it, and calls it I. Think of yourself 5 years ago. That person had different thoughts, different fears, different desires, different wounds. Is that person still you? If they sat across from you now, the two of you might disagree on many things. So who is you? Humans are not fixed beings. We are constant change. Every cell, every memory, every belief, every emotion transforms. Every 7 years, your entire body is almost completely replaced. So what holds you together? What makes you feel like one person? David Hume wrote in A Treatise of Human Nature, "I never can catch myself at any time without a perception." He said that when he looked inward, he never found a self, only thoughts, emotions, sensations rising and falling like a river that never stays the same. There is no self, only the stream. Eastern philosophy said the same thousands of years ago. Buddhism calls this anatta, or no self. The self is not a solid entity, but a temporary gathering of body, feeling, perception, formation, consciousness. What we call me is just a habit of labeling. Look at your emotions. A minute ago you were sad, then you watched something funny and laughed. Which one is you, the sadness or the laughter? Or are both merely passing moments? Recall a moment you were angry. During that moment, you felt like a person with a temper. But when the anger passed, you softened again. Which version is real? Or is each only a wave, rising and falling? If you observe closely, you will see that what you call I is simply the brain creating a coherent narrative so you do not get lost in your own constant transformation. But deeper still, the illusion of self touches another question. If the self is not real, are the pains the self carries real? Shame, hurt, comparison, insecurity, do these exist independently or only because the mind attaches them to a story of a solid me? This does not mean your emotions are not real. They are deeply real. But the self you believe is being wounded may be the illusion. A story, a shell, a temporary shape. The more tightly you cling to it, the more you suffer. The more softly you loosen it, the freer you become. Every meditation master says this in their own way. Eckhart Tolle writes in The Power of Now, "The ego is no more than this, identification with form. The ego is simply confusing yourself with your story. When you believe you are the story, you suffer. When you realize you are the one watching the story, you are free. Imagine for a moment that your painful memories are not you. They are clouds passing across the sky of your awareness. Imagine that the self-critical thoughts are not you. They are echoes of the past. Imagine that your fears are not you. They are temporary protective mechanisms. You are not these things. You are the sky beneath them. You are the witness, not the content. And if you listen deeply enough, you will discover something beautiful. The absence of a fixed self means you are not trapped inside any version of yourself. You can change. You can evolve. You can release. You can be reborn. You can learn how to love again. You can become someone who has never existed before. No fixed self means no fixed destiny. No label can confine you. No story can imprison you. You are fluid. You are becoming. You are possibility. And this realization in the quiet of tonight may bring you a profound sense of relief, because for so long you believed you had to protect a self, an image, an identity, a narrative. But truly, you only need to leave, to breathe, to feel what is here right now. You do not need to maintain a permanent character. You do not need to play any role. You do not need to hold on to pain as if it defines you. You can let it fall away like a leaf releasing from a branch when autumn becomes deep enough. Let this understanding sink into you. You are not the self you think you are. You are larger, softer, quieter. You are the silent awareness beneath all experience. And as this stillness spreads within you like moonlight across water, another gentle question appears. If the self is an illusion, then what about memory, the thing the self clings to as proof of its existence? Is memory truly accurate, or is it too a reconstruction, rewritten again and again? And so we arrive at part 27, the malleability of memory, where memory ceases to be truth and becomes the shape-shifting mirror of the mind. Let your breath flow long and quiet, and we will continue sinking deeper into the night. As the lingering warmth of part 26 continues to drift gently across your mind, like a thin veil of mist dissolving in moonlight, when you have just moved through the illusion of self, sensing the vastness of identity as a sky-shifting moment by moment, realizing that a human being is never a fixed shape but a quiet river of countless states, emotions, and memories. Another question rises from the depth of consciousness like a single leaf falling onto a still lake. If the self is only a story the brain tells to connect fragments into a seamless line, then what happens when the fragments themselves, the memories we believe to be true, are not stable, not solid, not intact at all? And from this soft darkness, the malleability of memory appears, gentle but sharp, quiet but deep, as if the mind were whispering to you. What you remember is not what happened, but what your brain recreates, retells, reshapes. Let your breath slow slightly, for this journey leads you into a truth both tender and chilling. Your memory is not a recording. It is a story rewritten every time you revisit it. The renowned psychologist Elizabeth Loftus, after more than 40 years studying memory, said something that shook the entire field of cognitive science. Memory is not like a videotape. It's more like a Wikipedia page. You can edit it, but so can others. Memory is like a Wikipedia page. No one keeps it unchanged. It is always being edited, expanded, distorted, and sometimes replaced by things that never existed at all. This may surprise you. How can something we consider the most authentic, our own memory, be this fragile? Recall a moment when you told someone a story from years ago and then told it again later. Did you add a detail? Remove one? Exaggerate a feeling to make the story smoother? Or maybe you realized you weren't even sure what exactly happened. This is not because you are inventing things. It is because memory behaves like an artist. It does not copy reality. It paints it anew. And the strange, beautiful truth is this. Memory does not only reconstruct the event, it reconstructs your emotional state at the moment you remember it. If you are sad, the memory becomes sadder. If you are happy, the memory glows warmer. If you are afraid, the memory sharpens into something more threatening. You do not remember the event, you remember your emotional relationship to the event. Imagine recalling an old argument. Years ago, it may have been nothing more than a small misunderstanding. But now, when you remember it, you carry wounds, expectations, fears of abandonment, and the brain begins redrawing it. The words sound harsher. The hurt looks deeper. You are not lying. You are remembering with a different heart, and the heart changes the memory. Nietzsche wrote in Beyond Good and Evil, "The past is always filled with the emotions of the present. The past is never neutral. It is a shape-shifting mirror. It reflects you at the moment you look into it, not the you who lived it. If you are blaming yourself for something that happened long ago, remember this. You are not looking at the past with the eyes you had then. You are looking with the eyes of now, eyes that know more, hurt more, expect more. And that means you're asking your past self to know what you could not have known back then. An impossible demand. Let your heart soften. You did the best you could with what you knew. Memory is only making you believe that you should have known better. But memory is an artist, not a camera, and the artist paints with the colors of the present. Memory does not change only because of emotion. It changes because of other people too. Have you ever believed a story simply because someone repeated it many times? Have you ever misremembered something because your family recounted a shared memory over and over? Have you ever believed something that never happened simply because it appeared in your dreams often enough? The brain does not distinguish between a real memory and a repeated story. It only needs enough repetition for the story to feel true. And from here, the malleability of memory invites a deeply human understanding. Many of the pains you carry are not from the real memory, but from the way you have retold that memory to yourself. You tell yourself, "I should have done better," but you are judging your old self with the wisdom of your present self. You tell yourself, "I was foolish." But you did not have the awareness then that you have now. You say, "I ruined everything." But the memory may have exaggerated that event and erased the moments when you tried. You are not wrong. You are simply remembering with a tired heart, and a tired heart is not a clear mirror. But if memory can be recreated, what happens when you learn to recreate it gently? You cannot change the past, but you can change the meaning the past carries. You can look at a broken relationship and say, "I failed." Or you can look at it and say, "I learned how to love." Both are true, only the framing differs. You can remember a mistake and say, "I am ashamed." Or you can remember it and say, "I grew from this." Memory is not fixed. Pain is not fixed. They flow like water. Water you can learn to hold more softly in your hands. Let your breath deepen, for you are entering a tender truth. You are not bound by the past, for the past never stays still. It changes with you. And when you change, the past can become lighter. And in this quiet moment, when you look back at memory the way moonlight touches water, knowing the reflection is always trembling, always shifting, always rewriting itself, a new question begins to rise, guiding your mind deeper into the night. If memory can mislead us on its own, what happens when someone else deliberately manipulates it? When our truth is reshaped by another hand? And that question opens the door to part 28, Social Manipulation Patterns, where we step into the subtlest shadows of human interaction. Let your breath soften, and we will continue deeper into the night. And as the fragrance of memory from part 27 lingers softly in your mind, like a thin mist resting over an inner river, when you have just realized that memory is not an exact recording, but a shape-shifting mirror reflecting the present more than the past, when you begin to feel a quiet relief, knowing that old pain can soften when you look at it with the heart you have now. Instead of the heart you had then, a slow question rises from the depths of consciousness like a leaf falling onto a still lake. If memory can be distorted by our own emotions, then what happens when that memory and our emotions, our thoughts, are shaped by someone else? Not through force, but through signals as thin as silk threads, as small as dust, as light as breath. Signals we often do not know are guiding us. And from the soft darkness of that question, social manipulation patterns emerge. Not as obvious manipulation, but as an invisible background music of human interaction, where every compliment, every silence, every glance, every pause becomes a subtle marker that reshapes our thoughts, our feelings, our behavior. Let your breath slow, because what you are about to enter is not just psychological tricks or influence tactics. It is a journey into understanding how humans touch one another, sometimes healing each other, sometimes unconsciously harming each other in ways no one anticipates. In this world of patterns, humans do not speak only with words. We speak with silence, with more attention and then less, with presence and then disappearance, with a rhythm of texting, with a half-second linger of the eyes, with a gentle compliment that trembles inside the heart, with a feeling of being seen, chosen, made special, and also with the sudden withdrawal of that feeling, leaving the other person confused, unsteady, craving the missing warmth. No one teaches us these things, yet all of us know them. All of us have used them, intentionally or unintentionally. All of us have been the influencer, and all of us have been the influenced. That is what makes social manipulation patterns one of the most delicate mysteries of psychology, where light and shadow blend seamlessly. Think of someone who once made your heart flutter with a small casual compliment like, "You do this better than I expected." A simple sentence, a passing moment, yet something inside you opened. You felt seen, validated, chosen. Think of someone who once haunted your thoughts simply through shifting rhythms of attention. One day they text constantly, the next day they vanish. One day they ask about every detail of your life. The next, they act as though you barely exist. You wonder what you did wrong. You analyze every word. You search old conversations. You ache. But they did not do much, only change the tempo. And your brain built entire stories out of that rhythm. Just a small detail, a compliment, a look, a burst of attention followed by withdrawal can pull you into an emotional spiral. That is the essence of social manipulation patterns. Invisible strings connecting human emotions, so subtle we mistake them for natural, yet powerful enough to reshape our behavior without our awareness. Jean-Paul Sartre once said in Being a Nothingness, "Hell is other people." But perhaps the meaning is not despair. Perhaps it means other people are the mirrors we look into each day, the invisible forces shaping us, the echoes that make us vibrate, the signals that nudge our direction. And often it is through others that our smallest emotional tremors become storms inside us. Consider compliments. A compliment is healing when it is sincere. It makes you feel full, stronger, more at ease with yourself. But a compliment can also be manipulation if it is delivered at the right moment, when you are lonely, vulnerable, hungry for validation. The speaker does not need to do much. They only need to touch the right string, and you resonate. Similarly, silence can be a communication stronger than words. When someone suddenly becomes silent after a period of warmth, your brain rushes to fill the gap. It connects old memories. It predicts. It imagines. It creates scenarios. Each scenario pulls you deeper into longing, anxiety, anticipation, self-blame. Silence becomes a signal, one that makes you justify, reinterpret, or punish yourself. That is why many emotional manipulation models rely on a cycle of affection and silence. Affection produces dopamine, silence produces deprivation, and the human being is caught in the loop like a moth around a flame. But social manipulation patterns are not always dark. They are also the foundation of gentle communication. A warm gaze when you truly listen, that is healing. A well-timed compliment when someone is hopeless, that is compassion. A silent presence when someone needs to cry, that is love. Humans influence each other. That is the nature of existence. The question is not whether we influence. The question is, with what intention? With love, influence becomes support. With control, influence becomes manipulation. And the beautiful part is, you have the right to notice the difference. You have the right to step back from signals that drain you. You have the right to trust your intuition. You have the right to breathe without reacting as others expect. You have the right not to let anyone hold the strings of your emotions. Understanding these patterns does not make you colder. It makes you freer. It helps you see when to step back, when to disconnect, when to protect your heart. And then the influence of others becomes not a maze, but a language you can finally understand. And in that strange quiet of newfound clarity, when you feel as though someone has just loosened a thread around your chest, another question rises from the deeper part of the night. If humans can be shaped by compliments, concern, silence, what happens when our emotions themselves are trained by cycles of reward and withdrawal? When the brain learns to cling to dopamine loops? And that question leads you to Part 29, Emotional Conditioning, where we enter the world of emotional loops that bind people to someone or something in ways difficult to escape. Let your breath soften, and we will continue deeper into the night. And as the subtle echoes of Part 28 continue to shimmer beneath your consciousness like invisible threads connecting one human to another, when you have just understood that compliments, silence, changing rhythms of attention, fleeting glances, or sudden disappearances all possess the power to shape human emotion. When you have begun to realize that communication is not merely language, but also frequency, rhythm, and nameless gestures that quietly mold our thoughts and behaviors, another question slowly rises from the darkness, deeper, softer, touching the most sensitive part of the soul. If others can influence us through signals, what happens when our own brain begins to program our emotions through reward and punishment loops we do not even recognize? And from that question, emotional conditioning emerges, soft as breath, yet strong as a rope tied around the heart. A rope that we often cannot see but can only feel, tightening in relationships we cannot leave even when we know they exhaust us, or in habits we cannot break even when we know they hurt. Let your breath slow like wind gliding over a quiet lake. For emotional conditioning is not a distant theory. It is something you have lived through, felt through, suffered through more than you realize. It begins simply. Your brain is built to seek reward. A sudden message, a gentle compliment, a warm hug, a timely gesture of care, a smile that makes your heart tremble a little. Each small event releases dopamine, the chemical that makes you feel alive, valued, connected. But what you may not know is this: dopamine does not merely create pleasure, it creates expectation. And when expectation is born, silence, withdrawal, inconsistency, or disappointment become punishment. The reward-punishment loop forms. You become dependent, not on the person, but on the moments that person provides pleasure. That is why there are people you cannot leave, even if they hurt you. You're not addicted to them. You're addicted to the moments when they make you feel alive. William James once said in Principles of Psychology, "We are nothing but a bundle of habits, but the deepest habits are not actions. They are emotional patterns." When emotions are conditioned through reward and punishment, you begin chasing tiny sparks of dopamine like a child chasing a lantern in the dark, even if every touch burns. Have you ever felt the ache of waiting for a message? You know you shouldn't wait, but you wait. You know you shouldn't hope, but you hope. And each time your screen lights up, dopamine bursts in your chest like fireworks. Each time it stays dark, you sink like a stone falling into deep water. This is emotional conditioning. It does not operate through logic. It operates through sensation. One moment of care makes you happy. One moment of neglect makes you hurt. And the brain begins to create a pattern: effort, reward, joy, effort, punishment, pain. And so you keep trying. Some people create this loop unintentionally. Others create it deliberately. But the result is the same. You become emotionally bound in a way you mistake for love, when in reality, it is biology. You think you love them because they are special. Maybe so. But often, you love because they are the most inconsistent provider of dopamine in your life. The brain does not crave certainty. It craves uncertainty with potential reward. B.F. Skinner proved this in his groundbreaking research. Inconsistent rewards create stronger addiction than consistent ones. This is true for animals, but even more true for humans. When someone loves you inconsistently, warm then cold, close then distant, sweet then cold, you cannot leave. Not because you are weak, but because your brain keeps waiting for one more message, one more tender moment, one more flicker of warmth. And you stay. But the truth you need to know is this: emotional conditioning is not limited to romance. It exists in friendships, in families, in workplaces, in bad habits like social media scrolling, gaming, rereading old messages. It exists in the addiction to validation, in routines that keep you attached to things no longer meant for you. But here is what matters most. Emotional conditioning is not a sentence. It is a mechanism, and mechanisms can be seen. Once seen, they can be loosened. Once loosened, they can be broken. Let your breath deepen gently, because freedom begins with understanding that the emotions you feel are not destiny. They are conditioning, and conditioning can be unlearned. When someone withdraws, you can learn not to treat it as punishment, but as a signal to rely on yourself more. When someone compliments you, you can learn to appreciate it without letting it define your worth. When someone goes silent, you can learn not to fill the silence with fear. When dopamine rises, you can learn to step back and witness it as a passing wave, not a command. You are not the puppet of reward-punishment loops. You are the observer of them. And when you observe, the loop loses power. Nietzsche wrote in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, "Become who you are." But how can you become yourself when your emotions are conditioned by invisible loops? By stepping back from triggers that destabilize you. By breathing. By realizing that emotions are not truth. They are responses. Once you understand that, you begin to separate. You stop being pulled in. You create space to choose rather than react. You become the keeper of your own heart. And in that moment of clarity and quiet, when you feel a soft light spreading inside you like moonlight falling across the surface of a night lake, another door gently opens. If emotional conditioning binds us to others through invisible loops, then what happens when the reality we experience, our emotions, our memories, our consciousness, is itself a construct built by the brain? And so our journey moves toward the final depth. Part 30. Human perception as a construct, where we face the question, is the world we live in real, or is it a brilliantly woven model inside the mind? Let your breath lengthen, and we will walk together to the final door of the night. And as the final echoes of Part 29 continue to ripple softly through you like faint waves moving beneath the surface of your inner lake, when you have just walked through the reward-punishment loops of emotion, when you have just realized that so many things you once called love, pain, or attachment were in truth neurological reactions, shaped by invisible signals. When you begin to feel lighter because you now understand that emotions are not sentences, but mechanisms, flows that can be observed, softened and released, another door slowly opens as quietly as the night folding itself around everything. If emotion is programmed, if memory is reconstructed, if the self is an illusion, if consciousness is an unresolved mystery, then what is the world you experience every day actually made of? And as that question spreads through you like a soft echo drifting across a bottomless valley, human perception as a construct emerges, not as a rigid declaration, but as a whisper. Perhaps everything you call reality, your feelings, your memories, your identity, your consciousness, the world around you, is simply a model your brain builds to help you survive a universe far too complex to perceive directly. Let your breath slow, deeply and gently, as if you are listening to the heartbeat of your own soul, because where we are going now is a threshold where science and philosophy blur, where reality and illusion blend, where the seen and the forever unseen meet in silence. Neuroscientist Anil Seth once said in Being You, "We're all hallucinating all the time. When we agree about our hallucinations, we call it reality. We are always hallucinating. And when enough people hallucinate in similar ways, we call it the real world." An idea that seems strange at first, yet modern cognitive science sees it as profoundly true. Because the brain does not see the world. It receives signals, light, sound, vibration, scent, and reconstructs them. When you look at a tree, you're not seeing the tree itself. You're seeing your brain's interpretation of it. When you hear the rain, you're not hearing the real sound. You're hearing your brain's rendering of vibrations in the air. Even color, one of the things we trust the most, does not exist in the physical world. There is no such thing as blue or red. There are only wavelengths. The brain transforms these wavelengths into the experience of color. So what is real? The brain creates a convenient model, not an objective truth. Plato said this more than 2,000 years ago in the allegory of the cave. What we see are shadows, not reality. We live inside the shadows of the world, not the world itself. And as you listen to these words, you may feel something subtle rising in your chest. Perhaps everything you call me, mine, my world, are gentle arms the brain uses to cradle you in a version of reality that feels safe, structured, survivable. A reality simplified. A reality made soft enough to bear. A reality arranged so the vast chaos of the universe does not swallow you whole. You think you know the world, but you only know the model of the world your brain constructs. You think you know yourself, but you only know the story of the self your brain narrates. You think you remember the past, but you only remember the version the brain recreates each time you revisit it. You think your emotions are the truth, but emotions are chemical reactions, not absolute realities. You think someone hurt you, but what hurts is the meaning the brain assigned to their actions. Everything is a model. Everything is the architecture of perception, and this does not make life less real. It makes it more human. Because if everything is a model, then you are not failing at life. You are simply living inside a model that needs updating. When you feel not good enough, that is not the truth. It is a model. When you feel unloved, that is not the truth. It is a model. When you fear the future, that is not the truth. It is a model. When you believe something is wrong with you, that is not the truth. It is a model. And a model can change. A model can expand. A model can heal. This awareness gives you the gentlest kind of freedom. You don't need to fight the world. You only need to soften the model through which you see it. Try feeling this in your body, You do not see yourself as you truly are. You see yourself through a model built from memory, emotion, and fear. Perhaps this is why Alan Watts once said, "We seldom realize, for example, that our most private thoughts and emotions are not actually our own. Our innermost experiences are not entirely ours. They arise from the brain's constructed model, a model shaped by childhood, family, culture, trauma, longing, and hope. You are not the model. You are simply seeing the world through it. And with this realization, you soften toward yourself. You begin to see you are not lost. Your model is foggy. You are not failing. Your model is tilted. You are not worthless. Your model is casting more shadow than light. And as you breathe more gently, you realize the most beautiful truth. The model can shift the moment you allow it to. You can learn to see the world more softly, to see others more compassionately, to see yourself more deeply, to see pain with tenderness, to see love with stillness. And the world changes, not because the world has changed, but because you have changed the way you perceive it. When you understand that your lived reality is not an absolute truth, but a construct of the mind, humility awakens in you before the vastness of the universe. But so does freedom, quiet and real, before the invisible burdens that once made you suffer. You realize you are not trapped in a fixed identity. You can breathe wider, walk lighter, love yourself in ways you never dared. And in the final moment of this journey, sitting in the quiet night, with your heart softer, your breath deeper, your mind more open, you may feel a gentle truth settling into you. The outer world may remain imperfect, but the inner world can become peaceful. And perhaps that is all you ever truly needed. Because sometimes the purpose is not to understand the entire universe, but to understand how to live softly inside the model your mind has spent a lifetime building for you. Let this awareness fade into you like the last glimmer of a distant star dissolving into the deep night, slowing, softening, guiding you gently into sleep, where no question needs an answer and every thought is finally allowed to rest. Sleep well. 3 hours of deepest psychology, mysteries to fall asleep. Let your mind drift into stillness with 3 hours of deepest psychology, mysteries to fall asleep. To a soothing journey into the hidden corners of the unconscious. In this calming bedtime exploration, we uncover psychological paradoxes, cognitive illusions, and the unseen forces that shape the human mind. Designed to quiet anxiety, ease overthinking, and guide you gently into sleep, each section blends philosophy, psychology, and soft storytelling. Perfect for sleep meditation, late-night reflection, or peaceful background listening. Close your eyes, breathe slowly, and let these whispered mysteries carry you into deep rest.